We did it. We did it. This opening's going to be a little awkward, guys, because the day got ahead of me. And so I wasn't able to actually spread this around, and I have to do it now, which is annoying, but such is life. Such is life. Like, you literally see, I got my video up like 3 minutes ago. No one's actually even looked at it. I might as well talk about the video while I'm doing this. We are embarked on a eugenics project here in Canada. Like, we are embarked on a eugenics project. There's no other way to talk about it anymore. We truly are abandoning our poor. We are abandoning our disabled. I woke up this morning and like the Madeline story that I read yesterday was just like, that's what I'm talking about today. And it's harrowing. It's horrible to think about. It's horrible to think about how we are abandoning our poor, how we are abandoning our disabled. I don't like it. I wish we wouldn't. I truly wish that we were a better people than this. And I don't know what we can do to actually convince people, hey, maybe we shouldn't embark on a eugenics project against our disabled. Maybe we shouldn't be forcing them into shitty circumstances where suicide is their only way out. Huh? What do you think? Right? What do you think? This is a real no-brainer, right? Like, this is a real no-brainer. But there's always going to be some fucking psychopath in the conversation being like, well, how are you going to pay for that? As if we don't have, like, trillions of dollars at our disposal. As if we're not completely capable of taking care of this shit. I don't know, guys. Seems like the whole fucking world is going to hell, and there's like fuck all that we can do about it. Except come onto my channel, cry about it with me. See, that was pretty painless, right? That was pretty painless. Went through that, it only took a couple of minutes. We did it. All right, let's. My mood today is somber. Is the word. Somber is the word. As much as I'd like to be like up and clapping my hands and all that kind of stuff, that is not how I feel. I feel somber. And there's a tune here that I think I want to play. Yeah, let's grieve together, bud. I hope you're doing well, pissed off. I hope you're doing well, bud. I got a tune here. When I made this tune, I didn't think it was that good, honestly, but every time I've played it, people have told me that they really, there's something to it, so I'm gonna play it now. I gotta get this book reorganized. It's essentially a scrapbook, right? No. There it is. Alright. I asked her kindly put down the gun. You don't need to hurt anyone, she said. The world's too hot, the people are too cold. I'm not gonna bother getting old. My work turns to bombs, my life's a lie. No one will notice if another girl dies, and doesn't need to be this way. 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 Christ collapses in an olive grove. Prays with blood to God above. Please, my Father, find another way. Please don't take my life away. The humans know not what they do, and must I die before they see what's true? And doesn't need to be this way. 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 The sun will burn us from the earth. Cares less than God what you're worth. Cling to delusions while your children die. We won't bother answering when you cry. God forgive us for what we've done, but we'll curse you when you're gone. And it doesn't need to be this way. 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 I'm going to rewrite that last verse. Not happy with that last verse. I'm going to lift it right out, and I'm going to write about Madeline. It's wrong what we're doing. It's wrong what we're doing. It's not that it's unfair or unjust or any of that. It's just wrong. That we should live in a world when people fall over, we bend over and pick them back up. It seems obvious. We're just a barbarian culture. If you can call what we are a culture at all. We're just barbarous and cruel and tribal. Lacking even the basic empathy that animals have. Well, there's a good start. I should have closed that, actually. This once I'm done today, I'm going to do a rewrite. Other news, I finished a script. I've been writing a Jafar redemption arc for about a year now. No chance that it will ever get made. Disney won't ever look at it, for sure. They only ever look at scripts from people who work for Disney. So if you're a Disney writer, you will get your stuff looked at, and if you're not, they'll ignore you. Which is why their stuff is so shitty, right? Because the only way you become a Disney writer and become acceptable within Disney is if you accept their ideology, their sort of way of thinking about things. And if you don't accept the way that they think about things, then you don't become a Disney writer, right? And so they've become incestuous. And that's why they're, like, intellectually incestuous. Which is why they're, all of the stuff they're producing is so terrible. Like, they can't, there is no fresh blood. There is no insight, right? Disney is now like an institution unto itself. And so they're incapable of producing art. They're incapable of producing something that's actually good or decent or has something to say or is interesting in any way. Like, every so often something comes out. Like, I'd say Pixar has managed to, had a kind of an era there where it was releasing interesting stuff. But, like, all of the, like, Marvel's schlock, the Star Wars garbage, like the live action remakes, all that kind of stuff, it's all trash, right? And so it doesn't matter if you write a script that is insightful or good or excellent. If it doesn't meet up with the ideology that they have in place, then it's not going to get done. And because, so my strategy is to like read the script out loud for the entertainment of other people. I'll probably release that for my Patreons at like a $10 level, I think. I think that's going to be the project that I'm going to do. Read it out loud and then give it to people who are at the $10 level of Patreon. And, but then it's to become internationally famous, right? Because if I become internationally famous and then I'm at like a party and there's like a Disney exec, I'll like pitch the script at them then. And I actually think that that would be easier than becoming a Disney writer. So let's all just like send our wishes in that direction, and maybe we'll see a Jafar redemption arc. And I'm actually really proud of the script that I wrote, because Jafar gets a redemption arc, and it's not revisionist. He is the character he is. He did the scummy shit that he did. It's not like they did with like Cruella or some or Maleficent or any of these guys, where like they literally retcon them and they just turn them into something else. They're different, right? With Jafar, he is exactly as he is, and then he wishes to be the genie, and then that's where the story picks up. And then he's a genie, so like it's it's limitless potential, right? Like you have this like clear journey, well, not clear, but you have this like mystical, magical, cosmic level journey in front of you, in front of him, and his path towards his path and his journey forward. I've even included a time loop so that he actually loops around and becomes the original genie. So he becomes the genie for Aladdin, and he witnesses Jafar, his older self, doing these actions and comments on them as he's witnessing them. And then after he's free, he ascends into the cosmic reality and attains divine enlightenment. There's no other way to describe it. And it's such a cool script. It's such a cool script. I hope Disney, in like 15 years, when I'm internationally famous, Disney will be like, wow, that guy's some guy will come to like a concert of mine or something, and I'll be like, hey, I've got a script idea for you, and then it'll get done. It'll be the most popular movie released in generations, in decades. That's right. You've got to believe in yourself. I can tell that you guys are sitting over there being like, fucking shut up, John, you fucking idiot. That's okay. It's okay to dream, you guys. It is. It's okay to dream, right? Not everything needs to be a nightmare. Not everything needs to be just a horrible expression of the terror reality that we live in. Sometimes you can just dream and wish. And I can't honestly tell you why I wrote the script. It was fun to do, though, because the structure of it, I actually structured it on the chakras. That Jafar begins as I got that idea because Jafar begins red, right? And the first level of the chakra system is red. And I thought to myself, well, why don't we ascend the chakras and ascend that emotional journey and take Jafar along the chakra path? So every time he comes out of the lamp, he learns something new about himself and about the world around him and about all of this kind of stuff, and accepts something about himself and ascends to the next level, and then changes color, right? So he changes from red to orange to yellow to green, and then I realized, oh, he's going to change to blue, right? And once I realized he changes to blue, I thought, well, why don't we just loop him? Just send him on a time loop, right? He goes around the loop, and then he becomes the genie, and then his next level is purple, and then white, where he attains divine enlightenment. Yeah, I'm very proud of that script. Anyway, and also the chakra system was very helpful And so hopefully, all right, etc., etc., and so on and so forth. I'm bending your ears too much about that script. I can tell. So let's say farewell to this picture. It is a good image, isn't it, Eziel? It is a good image. Let's just get into today's number. Who's in for today's number? Who wants it? I'm going with a 6. I'm feeling today's a 6 kind of a day.
Here we go for today's number.
Here we go.
It's November 16, 2021.
Nobody in for today's number?
10 balls.
We got a 10.
Each ball
Hey, Harry,
has
how you
a
doing?
number.
It's a 7. 2 from Ezio.
Numbers 1 through 10.
Here we go. Here we go. Who's going to be
Swirl
the lucky winner?
the numbers.
Swirl the numbers. Nova Scotia Kami in with a 4. Good to see you, bud.
Pick a number.
Pick a number.
Today's number is 1.
Wow. Today's number is exactly the inverse of you, pissed off. All right, we all whiffed. Nobody gets the David Lynchian energy today, unfortunately. Womp, womp, womp. Such is life. Such is life. All right, let's move on. Pretty quiet news day, honestly. Not big articles, nothing really coming out. So this is going to be kind of memey today. You'll see some good statements made in Parliament. That's all right, pissed off. That's all right. Just like maybe it's just trying to tell you to do the opposite. Don't go buy that scratch ticket today, right? Just save yourself a couple of bucks. The human body evolved over hundreds of thousands of years so you can sit at a desk in a sterile cubicle and look at fake lights in a box and pretend you don't want to kill yourself, and you can focus on doing that for 9 hours a day, 5 days a week. That's a mental disorder. Yeah. Like, what I like about this meme and why I think it continues to come around, I see this one an awful lot, is because it's hitting on how our culture has inverted itself. That we are the opposite of a culture. Like, we are like trickle-down economics, like every aspect. Like, it hits on this idea that I've been saying over and over again, which is there is no credible institution left in our society. Like, there's nothing that we are doing is credible. Nothing. And down to this idea that if you don't want to work in this incredulous society, that, oh, you've got some kind of disorder, you've got some kind of mental thing going on, when literally, like, we're monkeys. Like, we're literally meant to be, like, in fields and forests, like, picking berries off trees and eating nuts. That's how we lived for most of our existence. Right? Even as civilization and like housing and all of this kind of stuff began to get built and all of this, we were still mainly working in fields, right? We were still mainly like agriculturalists, right? We were still hunters. We were still doing that kind of stuff. And now we're living in this like sterilized version, like a parody of a civilization where we're being dominated by like systems of thought control. Like, there's no other way to call it, right? Like, the propaganda that gets blazed out into the society is effective and harmful, because at the end of the day, like, we're doing everything we can to not be what we are, which is just apes, really. Like, apes with the ability to communicate abstract thought to one another. Like, that's really what we are, and we're isolating ourselves in little boxes, and like I think about my own apartment building, like my own apartment that I'm in, right? Like, when I walk out the door and I look down the hallway, like this might as well be a prison. Like, if they wanted to turn this place into a prison, all they'd have to do is put a lock on the door, and that's true of all these apartment buildings. Unconditional basic income is the only way to start fixing this mess. I mean, it's, to me, like, that's a stopgap, right? The unconditional basic income is like a UBI would be like is like a safety net, right? but it's not the end goal. It's like a stopgap. It's like a way to cushion things. Like if you're crashing your car, you want airbags, right? And I see the UBIs like the airbags. I would prefer you didn't crash the car. Hey, damn boxes, how you doing, bud? Zworkin, how you doing, bud? A dying empire of consumers now, yeah. There's a meme that's going around. I don't have an example of it in front of me, but there's a meme going around now. I'm seeing a lot of different iterations of it, where it's the average lifespan of an empire is 250 years, and the American empire is like 245 years old now. So it's like there's this longing for death, right? There's this longing for this empire to die. Like we're longing for it. Planet of the Apes, exactly, Ruth. You got it. You got it. It's just we're the apes, right? Revolt. Guaranteed livable income, please. Yeah. WFH confirmed that I'm not made to sit at a desk all day. I don't know what WFH stands for, dude. Sorry. WFH confirmed that. Yeah, but like, I mean, nobody's meant to just sit at a desk all day. Like, it's such a what a stupid. What's so funny is like the cubicle system. Working from home, of course. The cubicle system. The guy that invented the cubicle system was absolutely he thought that the execution was absolutely abhorrent. He thought that the way that they actually used the cubicle system was evil, because his original idea was to create like sure there were cubicles, but it was all like connected, so you were all like you were in communities, you were in like nest groups, if you think of it that way. But then they took it and they made it like this isolationist kind of a thing, and he thought that it was absolutely abhorrent what they had done, and that seems to be almost a truism when it comes to the people who are working within the structure of capitalism, right? Like the guy who invented GDP literally said, don't use this as like a key measurement. Like GDP is a useful measurement for what it's useful for, but don't use it as like a key measurement. And what are we using as a key measurement? GDP, right? And so this is why you can't work within the capitalist structure, because capitalists will take even the most well-meant or most beneficial ideas, and they'll just twist them and distort them for their own ends because they're psychopaths, right? Like that's who they are. I just finished picking my Obamacare plan. So much fun. Thank you, Obama. Yeah. That's one thing I'm glad that I get to dodge being here in Canada. We could do a lot better, but America is a powerful raging fire, but like all powerful raging fires, it burns too fast and will burn out. Well, that fire has probably only just begun, honestly. Yeah, at my office we have nest groups. That's good to hear is working. That's slightly better. Like, it's not the best, but it's slightly better. UBI gives people the chance to set the price of the labor for themselves. Yeah, there is that theory of it as well. I do think that ultimately a basic income gets co-opted. If all we do is get the basic income passed and then don't continue to fight for the elimination of capitalism, that the capitalists will just accept it and then use it as a way to control and dominate the populace further. That is like my ultimate fear, because capitalists always use these sorts of things as ways to dominate people. Like that's the only way they think about things. So it could actually like really heighten the psychotic nature of the capitalists, right? Like, well, I can just lay off whoever I want now. I can just fire whoever I want now because they've got a basic income, so it's fine, right? Like, I just do what I want, right? In fact, why don't I just get rid of these benefits? Why don't I just get rid of this stuff? Why do I have these benefits? They've got a basic income, right? Yeah, that's exactly how to think about it, Matthias. Like, it's the starting point to build on, for sure. To me, it's the airbags, right? Like, the capitalism is going to be a car crash, right? It's going to be a car crash. And so I look at the basic income as airbags. It's like we need some kind of thing that's actually going to save lives. And a basic income is certainly going to do that. but we can't get complacent with it. Like, at the end of the day, like, it's about seizing the means of production and eliminating the capitalist class. That's what it's about. And yeah. Just an Elon Musk meme that I saw. I'm on a real Elon Musk, like, go fuck yourself, Elon. Elon's South African family got their wealth from an emerald mine worked by violently oppressed blacks. Tesla only survived due to a bailout from Obama, and in 2020 it took $4.9 billion from the government. The world's richest man got his wealth from racism and corporate subsidies. Elon Musk, Bernie is a taker, not a maker. Like, what a fraud this guy is. What a complete and total fraud. Yeah, capitalism doesn't have airbags. You just pray you die in the crash so you don't get stuck with the bill. Frankly, that's probably why they're so dead set against implementing UBI, because they know it's the start. Yeah, I mean, it's going to give a lot of people a lifeline, right? It's going to give a lot of people the ability to actually reassess their life, right? Which, when you're in a death cult, right? Like, a death cult does not want you to have the ability to reassess your life. Like, part of being in the death cult is that the death cult is your only option. That's just like classic cult behavior. Obama gave us Obamacare and Tesla? Wow, hashtag innovation. There's no rule of raising the UBI based on inflation. We'll be right back to where we are now. Yeah, Ruth, that's a valid critique, certainly. Like, and I mean, you can see that with what's gone on with disability services, right? That people who are on disability, like, because of inflation, because of these sorts of things, they're in a real dilly of a pickle, man, and nobody is paying attention to them. Like, nobody gives a shit about them. And it seems like the strategy now, and this is what I made today's clip about, it seems like the actual strategy from the ruling class is to just make conditions so bad for disabled people that they'll do the medically assisted dying, right? So you just let them live in shitholes, let them live in these, like, corporate run hellholes, and they'll just be like, fuck, get me out of here. If this is my life from now on until I degrade and die of natural causes, just get me out. And that seems to be the strategy. Like, it's a eugenics project, pretty clearly. Like, pretty clearly it's a eugenics project. Like, cleanse the society of these people. That seems to be what we're doing. So here's Doug Ford's pro-worker rhetoric from Joel Harden. I really like Joel Harden. I really do. Like, every time I listen to this guy, I think to myself, like, here's somebody Canadians would actually vote for, right? If this guy actually showed up on the campaign trail, but...
God bless the Westons. That was what Premier Ford said on February 26, 2017, when he was debating my friend Avi Lewis about where Canada was going. Avi had just said that there are 2 billionaire families in Canada that have as much wealth as 11 million Canadians. And Premier Ford's assertion at the time was that those folks, particularly the Weston family, he went on to say, were entrepreneurs and that they were part of the Canadian success story. I think that says a lot, Speaker, insofar as where this government is prepared to weigh its influence in this moment when working families in this province need a break. God bless the Westons. Let's talk about the Westons. Let's talk about the kind of low-wage province they want to create and the government that's allowed them to do it. Let's talk about a company that brought in a $2 an hour pandemic pay increase when so many of our neighbours were rushing to the grocery store, stocking up on essential supplies, and I guess the management felt a little guilty for the profits they were raking in. So they brought in a $2 an hour pandemic pay increase. They announced it March 21st, 2020, and they ended it on June 13th, 2020. The pandemic didn't end, Speaker. The pandemic didn't end, but the profits kept rolling in for Loblaws. Profits this year, the first quarter in 2021, up 12%. That is $392 million. Galen Weston and his family's net worth in this pandemic, during this moment, has increased by $4.5 billion, up $8.8 billion to $13.4 billion by April 7th, 2021. God bless the Westons. I have a better word on behalf of working people in this province, trying to feed their kids, trying to look after seniors, trying to make a good life. The Weston family are exactly what's wrong with this province. And politicians that offer handouts to them and let them abuse their workforce, they are part of the problem. They are creating a low-wage future at precisely the time that we need to create opportunities for people.
Get this guy on the campaign trail. Like, why am I constantly looking at the substitute teacher, man? Like, why am I constantly looking at Andrea Horvath? Like, where in the hell, like, where in the hell is this energy, right? Where in the hell is this energy going onto the campaign trail? Why is it that it's constantly this, like, stand there and talk like this to the Canadian people? We know that there are hard times for the Canadian people. Fuck that. Like, fuck that. I don't understand this. I don't understand why the NDP cannot understand. I don't understand how they cannot get into their heads that they need to galvanize... Oh, shoot. Disaster. Oh, shoot. Oh, sorry, sweetie. Oh, I'm sorry, sweetie. Oh, and a plant. Oh, God. Disaster all around. You okay, sweetie? Little out of tune now, but you're okay, love. Sorry about that. Oh, goodness. How did that even happen? Wow, that's a lot more tippy than I thought it was. Okay. Moment's carelessness. Moment's carelessness. She's okay. Like, why can't the NDP ever come out on the campaign trail and speak honestly, speak forthrightly, and speak truthfully to the people they wish to govern about how they're being abandoned? And what's so frustrating about these NDP, and it's frustrating to watch, it's constantly frustrating to watch, is that you'll see them in the House, just like we watched Joel Harden here, and he will be leveling them. Like, this is leveling them, right? Just straight out going in there and telling the truth with forthrightness, knowing in his heart that he is standing on the foundation of truth. And then a guy like this will go on the campaign trail and will be like, oh yeah, vote for me, I'm Joel Harden. I'm so lovable and likable. And it happens every fucking time. It drove me nuts when Mulcair did it. It drove me absolutely fucking nuts when Mulcair did it. He gave it away. Like, he literally handed the prime ministership over to Justin Trudeau with that bullshit. And I keep seeing it again. Jagmeet Singh does it. Andrea Horvath does it. Over and over and over and over and over again. They refuse. And at this point, it is a refusal. They refuse to stand in front of the Canadian people and talk to us like we're fucking adults. I'm so fucking sick of it. It's the reason I don't vote NDP. Because I'm convinced they're doing it because they've been bought. Because anybody, literally anybody who actually gave a shit about these people would be talking how I'm talking now. We're being abandoned. There are people like Madeline who are going to go commit suicide because we're abandoning her. There are people, homeless people living in the streets. Meanwhile, the Westons are making billions of dollars. This is an embarrassment. And when the NDP show up, they're like, hi, everybody. I'm the NDP. Vote for me. I'm so lovable and likable. Get fucked. Get fucked with this childish bullshit. Start treating us like we're fucking adults. Stop with this infantile nonsense. Right? Andrea Horvath isn't a substitute teacher, even though she looks like one. Right? Start talking to us like we're goddamn adults. I'm tired of it. Fucking win these elections. Get rid of these psychopaths, right? Do you think you're going to win elections by being like, hi, I'm Andrew Horvath, right? No. Fuck no. Like, I'm tired, man. I'm tired. Yeah, that's because the NDP is the bourgeoisie's backup party. Absolutely. Yeah, I think you're absolutely right with that, Matthias. That like, the capitalist class is so overwhelmingly dominant and so overwhelmingly powerful that they've just bought everybody, right? Like, they can afford to, right? They can afford to. The guitar is okay, Major. Yeah. The steel strings can take a beating, nylon string. Well, and this thing's a battle tank, man. Like this, I bought this when I was 15, and this thing's like, the shit I've done to this thing. Yeah, I saw that headline, Mock, and I saw earlier you said 7. It was a 1. So swing and a miss. Swing and a miss. Good effort. Good effort. 40% of Americans, kids, think hot dogs are bacon and are plants. Yeah, dude, we're fucked, right? Like as much as I like to rail against leadership, like I have come to understand that like what we need is a cultural shift. Like we really do need to change as a people, as like a mass of people. We need to change who we are. Because, like, the leadership that we are manifesting are just a reflection of who we are. Really. Like, and it looks to me like we're more or less completely fine about all this kind of shit. I'm gonna go jump into, like, wouldn't it be great, though? Wouldn't it be great if hot dogs and bacons just came from a plant? You know, like you have a bacon tree and you just pull bacon off the tree and munch it. That'd be nice. I'd feel a lot better about eating bacon. Although I haven't had bacon or hot dogs in like years and years now. I remember I had a hot dog and it was so gross. It was such a gross experience. And I felt horrible. Like fucking viciously horrible afterwards. So it's like, that's it. Like no more. And honestly, like, I saw a movie. What was it called? Was it Orca? It was one of these Brad Pitt funded films. It came out right around the time of War Machine, and it was a story about an animal that you like fell in love with, and its journey into one of these slaughterhouses, and how they're trying to capture it in order to slaughter it, and all of this. And it was very emotionally, like I was just like struck by how emotional it was. And I just can't eat pig, you know? Like I have a little pug down here, and he's like one step off of being a pig. Like for real. It's just, that's the problem that give their kids vegan diets without telling them the truth. Well, and also, like people, we are becoming just disconnected from our food supply. Like we don't know where food comes from. We don't know how things work at all. And that's been going on for a long time, dude. Like, that's been going on for a long time. Like, I know hunters. Like, I know people who have gone out into the woods and, like, killed animals and in order to eat them, right? And there are people who say, like, oh, that's disgusting. Like, that's what a horrible thing you're doing. While simultaneously, like, eating a steak off a plate. It's like, what do you fucking think is happening, bud? Like, how do you think this actually works? At least the hunter is being honest, right? At least it's honest what they're doing, right? Christopher Edwards, how you doing, bud? How you doing? Oh man, it's so nice that you guys are here. Honestly, so what a lovely time. Here's another expression of discontent with the capitalist system that I think is worth listening to.
What's an opinion you have that might piss some people off?
There's no such thing as a job for teenagers. Whenever we bring up the concept of people being paid a living wage, especially if they work full-time, people always say things like, what about jobs like McDonald's that are for teenagers? Teenagers don't need to be making that much money. Why should we be paying them that amount? Except you forget to take into account those jobs for teenagers tend to be open all day long. I'm not sure if you knew this, but teenagers are usually in school in the morning to early afternoon. If these were truly jobs for teenagers, don't you think that, maybe they'd only be open when teenagers are out of school? If these companies in this economy were actually treating these jobs like they were for teenagers, you'd only be able to go to McDonald's to get your Big Mac between, say, maybe 2, 3 p.m. and 10 p.m.? Who do you think's running these stores when all the kids are in school? And on top of that, it's kind of a weird argument because you're implying that just because someone's younger, they should be making less, even if they're doing the same job and producing the same amount of value with their labor. Yeah, if a teenager is doing the same job as an adult can be doing, making a living wage, they deserve to be making that amount of money too. Why does it matter if they're a teenager? On top of that, you forget to factor in that teenagers only work part-time, which means it wouldn't be a living wage anyway? If someone's going to work full-time hours, they deserve to be making enough to cover their basic needs at the very least. The only reason you defend this system is because you want to be able to have someone to look down on and say that they're worse than you. You just want people to suffer and not have the things that they deserve because you want to feel like you're superior to them. So if you're one of those people that defends this stuff and says that it's okay for people not to be paid a living wage even if they're working full-time, maybe grow up and realize that our system's actually really broken. It's hurting people in the working class.
And everything that kid just said right there is obvious. That's what's starting to happen, right? It's starting to absolutely everything's starting to become extremely obvious. It's starting to get to the point where you don't need to create a big large argument. You don't need to create you don't need figures and numbers. You literally just need to state what's real and in front of you and obvious, and the whole thing collapses. Oh, I saw you on Cortex's stream. See, this Cortex guy keeps coming up, and and finally, my favorite part. Report. Hate speech or graphic violence. What do you think, guys? Hate speech or graphic violence? Sounds good? Hate speech or graphic violence. Farewell, you stupid troll. You stupid troll. You're so dumb. You're so dumb. Trolls are dumb. A waste of life. Why waste your time being so dumb? You stupid troll. You stupid troll. The trolls have their own song now. Yeah. No, the last thing a troll wants to see is you enjoying yourself. So enjoy yourself at their expense. This Cortex guy, he keeps coming up, and I honestly have not pursued it. So hold on, Cortex. Oh, I spelled that wrong. Cortex podcast? Is this the guy? Is this it?
You're going to be really natural right now.
Is this it? Is this the person what we're talking about? Because, I just keep showing up on his shit? Okay. People keep coming over. There seems to be I don't know. I'm totally cool if these guys are fascinated by me as a figure. I am a beautiful and wonderful person. Right? Someone confirm it, though. Is this the guy that we're talking about? Caleb? Is this the one? Cortex Zero. There we go. Oh, conspiracies, alternative news media. Sounds good. My name is Tom, musician, artist, deep thinker. And inside of my mind is a vortex of ideas circulating endlessly around each other. One medium is snow. Yeah, I like this guy. I already like this guy. I don't know anything about him. We'll subscribe. Seems like I'm showing up on his shit, so why can't he show up on mine? Wait, scroll down. What? Oh yeah, he's using a lot of Ooh, incredible orb UFO flashes. Here we go. Star Wars Battlefront live stream. Yeah. But then also like heroin and opioid addiction, a harsh reality. Also looks like he's fascinated with like haunted stuff. Help me reach 1,000 subscribers. Yeah. All right. Godspeed, Cortex Zero. Maybe one day we'll speak. Who knows? Looks like he's more interested in conspiracy, like outright, like UFOs, right? Like some of that kind of stuff. Trump assassination plot emerges on dark web, like, yeah, but that's life for you, man. We're all on that journey. I was deep into conspiracies for a long time. Like I was a big 9/11 truther guy. Like I could talk for a long time about 9/11 trutherism, and I don't because it's not really meaningful. Like, I got off of 9/11 trutherism because Noam Chomsky pointed out, like, okay, let's say you prove it. So, like, these guys are guilty of, like, legitimate war crimes. Like, these guys are guilty of very serious, like, obvious right in front of your face, we can prove them war crimes, and nothing's happening to them. Like, who cares? And I was just like, that is a good point, Mr. Chomsky. That is a good point. My mind is more of a whirlwind of ideas of centripetal forces fueled by pure desperation. Yeah, I feel like that's like the statement of the generation, isn't it? Crazy how only 0.0000002% of the American population decided to work really hard so they could become billionaires. Can't believe everyone is so lazy. Like, right? Like these statements are becoming obvious. Like, oh wait, like literally what they're saying when, oh, if you're poor, you're lazy, is that the vast majority of the population is lazy. Like the vast majority. I came on his channel several months ago and I helped convince him that the Uyghur genocide isn't actually happening and that the CPC is good. And I talked to him about manufactured consent. Oh, cool, dude. Cool. Because like the Uyghur genocide narrative is starting to fall apart. Like I think that we are almost cresting the tipping point. Like I think there's still a little tension there, but I see that it's tipping over to the other side, and that people are starting to be like, wait a minute, like there's a bunch of stuff that's not really adding up here. Have I talked about mandates lately? Are you talking about vaccine mandates? I got to be honest, Ward. I'm completely neutral. I'm completely neutral. Like that's one of those issues that I see a lot of the perspectives of. Like I understand where everybody is kind of coming from. Like the issue of personal freedom, but then there's also a health and safety issue and all of that kind of stuff. If it was up to me, like if I was the prime minister, if I was the king of whatever, I would just listen to my health professionals and I would do what they said. That's what I would do. And if my health professionals were saying we should mandate this, I would mandate it. Like that's always been my position, that we should listen to the doctors and nurses that are on the front line and do what they say. And if they are the ones that are saying we should mandate this, then we should. And if they're not saying that, then we shouldn't. And that is from start to finish my whole opinion, because this issue is so complex. There are so many different factors. It's been very revealing. This pandemic period of who we are as a people. It's really revealed to me. Like, I always knew that there were like evil, stupid people in our society. I didn't realize how many of them there were. Right? I thought it was like 10%, and it turns out it's more like 30, maybe 40%, with another 30% being like just completely delusional and apathetic. So it's like huge sections of the populace, way more than I thought. But in terms of the mandates, if the doctors and nurses are saying do it, then do it. And if they're not saying it, then don't do it. And I actually, like, I literally don't care. Like, I understand why a government would mandate it because it's a health and safety issue, right? And we do all kinds of things that the government mandates, right? There are all sorts of things the government mandates that we do without thinking about it, right? And I don't see why this should be any different. And then on the other side, if a government is like, no, we can just do this voluntarily, no mandates, I'm like, okay, cool. Like, you think you have it under control, so okay. So I'm that's where I'm at with this. Like, I don't really have a, and I don't really want to wade into the. There are people who are wading into the weeds of, like, the COVID, the vaccinations. People are wading into those weeds, and I'm gonna let them do that. Like, and I'm talking about you guys like Jimmy Dore. I'm talking about you guys like Max Blumenthal. Like, those guys are wading into the weeds. Like, they're just going right in, and, like, Godspeed. I'm gonna let them. And should anything spit out of them that is interesting, I'll bring it to you guys. But so far, it's just a lot of speculation and a lot of, like, and I mean, I understand why people are skeptical, right? Like, it's not like these corporations have been telling us the truth all along, right? Like, I mean, it's obviously in their benefit to keep this pandemic going. It's obviously in their benefit to convince us to just constantly take, like, new vaccines and new boosters and new stuff, like, all that all the time. Right? It's obviously in their benefit to do that. So I understand why people are skeptical. And that's why I don't really condemn people for wading into those weeds, even when they get it wrong. Even when they get it wrong. Oh, vax talk all the time. Oh, God, it would be so exhausting. I feel like I would be exhausted at the end of every day. I would just be like, kill me. For some reason, people with doctor in front of their names think they suddenly know everything about medicine and viruses. Yeah, I know, right? Like, if you're like an eye doctor, suddenly you're like a vaccine expert. Yeah. It is mandated that you can't drink and drive at the same time. It's a public safety measure. Exactly, Mock. That's exactly the point that I'm making. Like, but at the same time, like, I mean, Caleb is talking about how, like, the media is lying about China and how our government is lying about China, right? And, like, if they're gonna lie about big scale, like, genocidal things like that, like, they'll lie about other stuff. So, like, lots of skepticism all around. You guys know me. I always say I require source documents. Like, I require, like, a firm. I'm not going to move forward on speculation. I'm going to move forward on what the people who are experiencing it on the front are saying, and I'm going to move forward with the source documents. That if somebody comes out and says, aha, these corporations were lying to us because of this, and we have the memos, and there was a whistleblower and all of this, I'm interested. But until I get something like that, it's all just kind of wild speculation, you know? And I mean, I understand that speculation is warranted, that it's well earned by these corporate guys, but I'm not going to stake my claim on, and I got to be straight with you. Like, I really do. It doesn't spark my fancy. It doesn't, I'm not that, like, it doesn't strike me. I'm not like, the vaccine, what's going on with that? Let's go down the rabbit hole and sift through and do the discovery and find the thing. Like, the Uyghur genocide narratives really struck my fancy. Like, that really, I was really, really interested in that. That was a very interesting story to me. And right now I'm going down a real big Stalin rabbit hole, like, huge Stalin rabbit hole, and getting a lot of pushback from a fellow comrade who is a Trotskyist. And I'm actually quite grateful that I'm getting that pushback, because it's propelling me forward to do more research and learn more. And he keeps bringing up, like, okay, but what about this? And so it gets me down another rabbit hole and starting to research it and all of this. Okay, and then, well, what about this? And what about that? And like, so it's this constant, like, push to learn more and find out more. And I'm actually, at first it was kind of annoying, but now I'm actually quite grateful because the more I learn, and it's so funny, dude, because, like, the more I learn, the more I like Stalin. Like, really. Like, the more I learn, the more I really like this Stalin guy. Like, and I'm not saying that. Ooh, that's brutal. The more and I'm not saying that in order to like denigrate anybody and to denigrate any like Trotskyists, like the people who are like really fundamentalist Trotskyists. Like, I'm not saying it to denigrate them or anything. I just think that like a lot of these guys, yeah, people like above is the reason why I turned tanky. Exactly. Like, oh wow, I can't imagine why the Chinese people are afraid of North Americaners, right? Like, yikes, big yikes, and like completely unnecessary. And I wish there was a way just to get rid of it. Like, now it's there, and I've got to look at it. Oh well. Can you guys see this? Right? It's his name and hidden by the Canadian economy. Can you still see that, guys? But like, this is exactly how I think about like my journey into communism happened because of Jordan Peterson. And that Jordan Peterson, yeah, I'm with you on this, buddy. Wow. You're subscribing, you're waiting 5 minutes. Yeah. Yeah, they're early. And I've got slow mode on, and I've got, so they're subscribing, they're waiting 5 minutes, they're commenting once, and they're getting removed. Okay. And, yeah, so Jordan Peterson was the one that actually got me learning more about communism, right? Because he made some outrageous statement how like Marxists were all bad, or like that the ideology was evil, and all of a sudden I'm like, that sounds extremely xenophobic, right? That sounds extremely wrong, right? Like you're telling, like, to me that was no different than saying like Islam is evil, right? I was just like, probably not. And so that sent me down a path of actually like that actually sent me down a path of learning more about Marxism. And then ultimately I looked at it and was just like, these Marxists are actually onto something, right? You read the Communist Manifesto, you read Capital, and you're just like, oh yeah, this guy Marx, he was really onto something. And then you take a look at like the history of the people who are doing communism and the people who are embarking on that path, and you're just like, oh, these guys are great. These guys are great. Like, Mao was great. Stalin was great. Like, Trotsky was great. Like, Trotsky was an important revolutionary figure. And Lenin was great. Lenin certainly was great. Like, that's what's interesting about the capitalists, right? Is that they'll really go after Stalin, but they do that in order to ignore the legacy of Lenin, right? Like, that's what's really true. That's what's really true, is that Stalin is put, like, heightened in our minds. Like, Stalin. And it's all done to completely ignore the objectively good legacy of Lenin, right? That Lenin was absolutely a crucial and important figure in communism. Unequivocally, objectively, it cannot be argued otherwise, right? Lenin was an incontroversially excellent leader and did excellent things based on Marxist principles. And nobody talks about Lenin, right? It's all Stalin. It's all this Stalin Trotsky shit, right? And so you start to wonder, like, what's up with that, right? Why are we constantly being bombarded with this Stalin-Trotsky rivalry and, like, the Stalinism and all of this kind of stuff? But, like, nobody ever talks about Lenin. And so when you dig into Lenin, you're really like, oh shit, like, this guy knew his business. He knew his stuff. Like, he was objectively good. And that's the reason why the capitalist people are like, oh, you're a communist. That must mean that you love murder. And it's like, who did Lenin murder? Like, what are you talking about, bud? And then when you actually start to investigate it more and more, as I have, like, all of their claims are total bullshit. Like, I'm on a real collectivism kick right now. Where, like, is this it? No. Where did I put this? I put this somewhere. Right. The narrative always was that Stalin went into the Stalin stole a bunch of land from the people called the kulaks, who were peasants, right, and caused a famine and murdered people. Well, here's the BBC actually reporting on this. Canada should be part of America? That's so fucking stupid, dude. Oh, man. Thanks for the laugh. And, so, collectivization in practice. This is from the BBC. By the end of the 1920s, it was clear that Russian agriculture was inadequate. Although the kulaks were relatively wealthy and successful, the thousands of tiny backward peasant farms were not producing enough to feed the population. In 1927, Stalin declared that the way forward was for people in each village to voluntarily unite their farms into one collective farm. The Koltsoid would be able to afford machinery, be more efficient, and be able to create a surplus to send into the towns. After 2 years, when everyone had ignored the idea, and there had been a famine, Stalin made collectivization compulsory. The peasants, the kulaks, hated the idea, so they burned their crops and killed their animals rather than hand them over to the state. Capitalists are psychopaths, right? So rather than actually acquiesce and attempt to improve their society, right? They burned their own crops and they killed their own animals, right? Like, the lesson here for us as communists is to understand, and the mistake that Stalin made, in my view, is that he didn't understand that these guys were psychopaths, that they would do this kind of thing, where if I can't have it, you can't either, right? That kind of attitude. Stalin relaxed his rules for a while, but in 1931, he again tried to enforce collectivization. Again, there was the same resistance and another worse famine. Stalin blamed the kulaks, declared war on them. They were executed or sent to the gulag. And if you ask me, yeah. Like, yeah. Like, the leader of your country is attempting to increase productivity and improve the lives of the citizenry, and you're creating famines. Yes, you should be put on trial, for sure. You should be put on trial for that and sent to the gulag. And how this gets reported in North America is exactly the opposite, right? That the kulaks were like these hobbit-like, lovable creatures who were just like, oh, I'm so innocent and sweet and lovable, right? Like that they weren't like, no, they weren't. Like, these guys were psychopaths. And the more I learn about them, the more I see them as, like, wage slavers. They were obviously, like, rentier landlords benefiting from the poverty of a subservient class, right? And clearly Stalin was trying to rid the society of this class-based structure, right? On Marxist terms. And they fought back, and they lost. I like Lenin. don't let the media decide what you explore. I'm reading a lot of AH to just understand that period. It's good to know I'm free of other people's judgments. Well, I mean, part of the benefit, especially when it comes to Stalin, is like I don't have any of the negative attitude. Like I didn't grow up being bombarded with like anti-Stalinism. So I literally am going into Stalin as a true like illiterate, like as a true like I don't have an opinion, right? And meanwhile there are people around me who have strong opinions, and I'm like, okay, well that's interesting that you have strong opinions, but those strong opinions don't seem to be particularly balanced, right? Like, if all you do is read the literature written by someone's enemies and believe it, then you're obviously going to have a distorted view of what's going on. Yeah, the NDP needs some Lenin energy for sure. For sure they do. Kulaks of the Underhill. In the worst case scenario, you could say Stalin's policy weren't the greatest, and he could have dealt with Holodomor. I don't know how to pronounce this, honestly. I just always read it. Holodomor. In a much better way. But what's interesting about that statement, Mocked, is that even the Soviets knew that that was true, right? That the Soviets made documents about what they could have done better during that period of time. Right? And those documents get used by capitalists as like, this is their confession note. They meant to do it. When in reality, it's like you look at it and you're like, no, they like went through this situation and then they analyzed it. And then we're like, okay, what could we have done better? So like what you have just said there is a completely incontroversial statement, because even Stalin himself acknowledges the mistakes that he makes during that period of time. That the Soviets themselves are going through and being like, okay, this happened. We probably could have done this a little bit better. This probably didn't help the situation, right? And it all smacks to me. It all smacks to me of just backseat quarterbacking, right? Like as if you could have done any better, right? And the thing that I always got to remind everybody, like, the Soviet Union was literally the first serious attempt at building a society on Marxist principles, right? They're going to make mistakes. Like, it's going to happen. What's preferable, centralization or decentralization? I mean, centralization certainly gives you a lot more control. Decentralization. What matters, I think, Ward, is like planned or unplanned, right? Like, it's important that an institution is able to make its own decisions and be agile in that way, but it also needs to report to like a centralized group. There needs to be a large-scale meta kind of plan. There needs to be some kind of trajectory, right? So while I think it's important that like an institution is able to make its own decisions for itself, and that the people who are making the decisions should be the people who are running it, like the workers, the people who are doing the work should be the people who are making the decisions within that institution. But that institution should still be beholden to some kind of central planning organization, right? So that there is like an improvisation and an agility that can happen to a degree by the institution itself, but that they can't just go fucking off the rails, right? That they do need to abide by central principles. And those central principles should be socialist principles, right? Like that, hey, we should do things to help people. Amassing personal wealth for yourself should not be the goal of anybody in the society. The actual produce was only 40% of what was being reported. I don't know if I understand the comment Mocked, sorry. Hey, hope everyone's good. How are you, John? I'm doing well, Tinker. I'm doing well. Having kind of a somber day today, honestly. Like, really coming to terms with how brutal our society is. Like, really, we're a very, very, very brutal society. And yesterday I was really confronted with the reality of that. You can watch my daily clip to understand more on that. certain parts of capitalism are highly centralized. Yeah. I mean, the capitalists want control of certain things. They'll centralize them. Plural means fist or tight-fisted. Kulaki. Yeah. So, like, what I'm learning more and more, especially as I investigate the Soviet Union, is, like, there are many sides to it, right? There are many sides and many perspectives. And I'm even starting to listen to lecturers. There's one lecturer that I'm listening to, what's his name, Kotkin? He's actually very balanced and very interesting. He's basing all of his opinions on documents, source documents, so I really respect that. But he's a capitalist, right? And so his opinions of how things have gone, and of course, so that means that he's on the side of the kulaks, right? He's on the side of the slavers. And he doesn't really see capitalism as a slave system the way that I do. And so while, like, it's the very definition of, like, of disagreeing on, of having a disagreement. Like, he's using the same documents I'm using, it's just that he's a capitalist and I'm not, right? So he'll say, like, and then Stalin fought the kulaks, and I'll say, and then Stalin fought the kulaks, right? Like, and it's just like, my perspective is like, imagine watching like Robin Hood or Star Wars. Imagine watching Star Wars and like being on Darth Vader's side. You know? Imagine being like, come on, Empire, you can get that rebellion. Quash that rebellion, Empire. Right? Like that's kind of what it's like to be a capitalist these days. Like, I just feel like I'm looking at a bunch of people who are cheering for the villains. And even if they use source documents and get all their facts correct, they're still cheering for the villains. Right? Oh, here's an anti-union letter from Buffalo Starbucks workers attempting to unionize. Here, we want, dear whoever, we want you to love to come into work every day. This is going to be really creepy, I bet. We want you to love coming into work every day. Every shift can and should be a great shift. We're making progress and we will not stop trying to do our best for you. We truly appreciate you. We are committed to you. In the meantime, you're also facing a big decision. Your voice is your vote, and every partner should answer the NLRB's question. Do you wish to be represented for the purposes of collective bargaining by Workers United? This decision affects you, your job, your store, and all Buffalo partners. If a majority of the partners who return ballots vote yes, then all partners in the store are in the union with no opt-out, and everyone will have to pay dues. We've been told by partners that the union made a lot of promises, but please remember that no one can guarantee you what may happen in negotiations. Please make sure you're getting your own facts. Do your own research, right? Ask us questions and do your own research. And the LRB website is a good place to start. Please do what is best for you. Individualize, separate, compartmentalize, stay separate, do not collectivize. We have two asks. First is to please vote. Those who want a union are highly motivated and highly likely to vote, and this big decision will be decided by the majority of voters who actually vote. So they're trying to get people who vote no to actually go. Second is to vote no. We're asking you not to rush into this and give us more time. We're making great progress in Buffalo and would like more time to make this the full Starbucks experience for you. We don't want to put a third party between us, and we don't want you to pay dues to have Workers United officials speak for you to us. And if you're not 100% positive, please vote and vote no. This is a secret ballot election, and no one will know how you voted unless you tell them. Whether you signed a card or not, wear a pin or not, no one will or should know how you voted. We're asking every partner to respect every other partner's rights and privacy. Thank you for your partnership and patience and for all you do. We are all here and available to you if you want to connect and have any questions, reach out anytime, etc. Like, This is exactly how Starbucks rolls. I worked for Starbucks for 5 years. The Starbucks mascot. The siren is the perfect symbol for Starbucks, right? A creature who woos ships and sailors towards them with beautiful song and beautiful presentation, only to have the ship crash upon the rocks so that they can go in and feast upon the hearts of the sailors they've lured to their destruction. That's absolutely how Starbucks rolls. And this letter is absolutely the way that they do things, right? We want you to love coming to work together. Every shift should be a great shift. We're making progress and will not stop trying to do what's best for you. Come on, baby. Please, baby. We truly appreciate you and are committed to you. Vote no! Vote no! Yeah, that's Starbucks all the way, dude. These people should unionize. Please, baby, give me another chance. These people, and this is from the SB Workers United. That's so funny. Please, baby, give me another chance. Yeah, like, vote yes. Vote yes. Fuck Starbucks. Fuck them to death. Like, fuck. If it's a corporation, fuck it to death. Right? There's an entire class of people operating in the system who should be eliminated. The class should go away. This psychopath class should go away. And here is just evidence of their psychosis. Here's evidence that they are just completely fucking psychopathic. For those who didn't know, the rebels in Star Wars were inspired by the Viet Cong. Exactly. Yeah, and explicitly so. George Lucas has explicitly stated that that is the case. So it's no longer up for interpretation, right? If an artist comes out and makes an explicit statement like that, the best that you can do is say, oh, okay, like, did they achieve it, right? Is the rebel, are the rebels actually a good analogy for the Viet Cong in Vietnam? That's the best that you can do as an analysis if you like to remain credible. It's why these guys who are analyzing Squid Game, who are saying Squid Game's actually about communism, it's why they're totally frauds, right? Either illiterates or likely both illiterate and stupid, right? As well as being malicious. Because the creator, the writer of the piece explicitly stated that he wanted to make something that was an analogy for living in capitalist society. So the question isn't, is it actually about communism, which is obviously dumb propaganda made by morons, but is actually, did he achieve it, right? And I would argue yes. I would argue that yes, the writer of the piece achieved his objective in creating an analogy about how capitalism operates in the system. To McRib or not to McRib, capitalism sure innovates gross stuff, yeah. Don't forget to share your blanket. Union membership gets workers 30% more pays, so if your dues are less than 30%, your wages net positive. Yeah. Are there any innocents among the ruling class? No. No. Like, this is the inherent paradox about being part of the ruling class in the capitalist structure, is that the only way to maintain innocence is to give away your wealth and thereby no longer be part of the ruling class. The structure of it makes you evil, right? You are structurally evil. There's no such thing as like a benevolent capitalist. It doesn't exist. And the more power you accrue and the more wealth you accrue, the more psychotic and psychopathic you become. It's just how it is. And if they want to redeem themselves, the only way that they can do so is by giving their money to the poor. The Cavernacle has made some excellent videos dunking on right-wingers, interpreting left-wing subtext wrong. Yeah, it's so easy to do, though. Like, it's the Squid Game one was, like, really embarrassing for those guys. Like, I can't imagine what it must be like being someone who actually listens to like Tim Pool or Ben Shapiro and actually thinks they're smart. Like I try to get into that mindset because I understand, like, I get Tim Pool and I get Ben Shapiro. Like, they make sense to me as people, right? I do not understand their followers. I don't understand how anybody thinks these guys are worth listening to or credible or even interesting, right? Like, that's the other part of it. Like, I don't really understand why anybody thinks that they're interesting, you know? Like, they're clearly Luddites. Like, they're clearly dumb. And the Squid Game critique where they both were just like, this is actually about communism, was like, on the face of it, fraudulent. Like, it's rare that you can disprove someone's entire theses with a sentence. It's very rare that you can do that. And in that particular case, it literally is just like, hold up the statement from the author himself. I wanted to make a story about capitalism. Squid Game is actually about communism. What are you fucking talking about? Like, but they are banking on the reality that, like, their own base is quite illiterate. Like, they are banking on that. And, like, the truth about, especially a guy like the reason why I really hate Tim Pool, I actually really dislike Tim Pool way more than Ben Shapiro, because I think that Ben Shapiro is like a true believer. He really believes in what he says, even though he's like way off the rails. Like, his central thesis is wrong, right? Which is that he thinks he has a magic book that gives him the rules for how to live, right? Called the Torah. He thinks that it was created by God and it's a mystical document that he needs to adhere to, and he needs to adhere his worldview to that document, right? He's stated that several times. That's why he's not a trustworthy commentator, right? Because if you think that magic is real, well, you don't have a grip on reality. But at least I think he's trying to do that honestly, you know? Like, I see his trajectory as, like, he was born wealthy. He was a prodigy child, which is true. Like, he's actually a spectacular violinist. Really good. I wish that he had have pursued that. I think that would have been the gift he could have really given the world, is his violin. And clearly he's sharp. Clearly his engine is running, right? But because of his perspective of being born wealthy, he's never experienced even a moment where there was a concern about paying rent or any of that. That's never been part of his worldview. It's just not part of how he sees anything. And it leads him into places where he says very stupid things, like very stupid things. Like, oh, if everything goes underwater, just sell your money, sell your property and move. It's like, sell it to who, buddy? Like, sell it to who? And he still says that. Like, even though people are saying this, like, sell it to who? Who are you talking about? So, like, but what's interesting about Shapiro is that I don't think he is trying, although he does lie. Like, he does just lie. But in any case, I think there's a kind of an honesty in his stupidity, right? Like, that's what it is that I think that there's like an honesty in his dumbness, where he's just planted his feet on positions that are obviously false and completely falsifiable, like, instantaneously. The Torah is not a magical document, right? If you believe that it's a magical document, then you don't need to be paid attention to. Really. Like, really. Tim Pool, on the other hand, I think is actively duplicitous and has admitted so, right? He's outright said that he is actively duplicitous, and he actively works to confound and confuse the narrative so that people don't know what his actual positions are on things, right? So you can't trust a person like this, right? Like, imagine you had a friend who would just, like, say whatever, right? Well, you can't trust such a person's opinion because you don't know if it's their opinion. You don't know if they're being paid to say that opinion. You don't know if they're just trolling you, right? So Tim Pool is one of those figures. I don't know why I'm on this, but okay. But Tim Pool needed to pay for that indoor skate park. Yeah, like, Tim Pool's just found his market. He's selling himself to the people who are willing to pay him. And he's willing to say whatever he needs to say in order to maintain that, right? That if suddenly all the money was in, if suddenly all the money was in communism, if suddenly everybody was just like, communism's great, we're rejecting everything else, Tim Pool would be a communist, right? It would happen like that, instantaneously. He would suddenly become like a communist expert, and it would happen overnight. If everybody was suddenly just like, the only people who actually gave him money were communists, and the capitalist thing dried up and all that kind of stuff, he would be like the greatest fighter of communism you've ever seen. Shapiro wouldn't, right? Like, so Tim Pool would like completely go where the wind is blowing. Shapiro would still stand up for his principles, wrong as they are, right? And so there's something about that you've got to at least acknowledge, that like Shapiro's not a fraud. He's just desperately incorrect. Pool is a fraud. Anyway. Communism seems to be getting more talk time, or maybe it's just my feed. I think, no, it has been getting more talk time. Like, people are beginning to see that this is a death cult, right? And what that means is that people are starting to take less seriously what the death cult has to say about things. So like the subject of communism, right? The subject of Lenin or Trotsky or Stalin or Mao, right? People are like, wait a minute, the only thing I know about these figures is what I've been told by this overt, obvious psychopathic death cult. Maybe I should learn something about that. And now there are more people cropping up who are like, yeah, it seems like it's a bit more complex than what we were being told, right? Like, oh, the famines in Russia are so horrible. I can't believe that the communism failed and created a famine. And you're like, okay, well, first of all, the famine wasn't actually as bad as you think it was. Second of all, it's a natural event, right? The communists didn't create the famine, right? And like, then you dig in and you're like, oh yeah, like it's actually the capitalists, the kulaks, right? Within that are still within the communist society because they're still operating, who, when they are told that they can no longer operate, actually create the famine themselves. So it looks like capitalism is the villain here yet again. And when you start finding out more and more, you realize like, oh, a lot of your sources are coming from like literal Nazis. Like literal Nazis, not collaborators, like literal, like the sergeant of a Nazi platoon. Like you're like, why are we believing these guys, right? Why are we believing these guys? And so, no, communism is for sure getting more talk time. It's getting taken more seriously academically is another thing that's starting to happen. You had a paper get written. There was a seminal moment, actually, like a really important moment that Richard Wolff talked about, where I forget what newspaper it was, or was it like Harvard Review or something like this? Anyway, an article is written where they outright say, we need to start talking about the Communist Manifesto. We need to start reading the Communist Manifesto and reading the works of Marx more seriously. And that wasn't meant with derision. It wasn't met with like derision or dismissal or any of that kind of stuff. It was met with there was kind of a nodding consensus that like, yeah, we should probably actually read these documents and have something interesting to say about them. Because they hadn't been, right? And you've got a moment where you have like literally a 4-star general in front of Congress saying like, no, I've read the works of Marx, right? Like we should be reading these documents, and that's, so there is a shift in the culture. Like people are actually looking at the Communist Manifesto and Capital, and the history of communism, including the Soviet Union, including Russia, or China rather. And ironically, it was Peterson that has shone the light on Marx. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, Peterson has shone the light on Marx. And I mean, that's exactly what happened to me. It's exactly what happened to me. So, and like, all Peterson really revealed is that he's kind of illiterate. Like, he just doesn't actually know anything about it. That in the end, he just kind of swallowed the propaganda for himself. Yeah, well, Karl Marx didn't add anything to economics. Yes, they actually say that in universities. Yeah, exactly, right? Like, we don't need to read Marx because he didn't add anything. And you're like, what are you fucking talking about, dude? Like, what are you talking about? Like, Karl Marx is a crucially important figure. Like, you've got to, if you've got an economic system, you've got to read your critics. Like, you've got to. And, but, Well, now I'm even more sad. I knew COP26 was a joke, but this headline just makes it even worse. Biden administration set to proceed with largest offshore oil and gas lease sale in U.S. history. Yeah. Well, here in Canada, the Liberals are planning to increase productivity by 30%, right? Like, everybody sees the writing on the wall, right? They know that the populace is getting to be like, hey, stop doing this. And so it's like a new gold rush. They're just trying to get the oil out of the ground, right? They're trying to get the oil out of the ground so that they can just have it, right? Like, I mean, you guys know me. We've got to surround the halls of power. Like, we've got to stop this. It's madness what we're doing. Like it's beyond madness at this point. Like, the number one reason why I happily call this place a capitalist death cult is because of this. Yeah, Trudeau basically saved the oil industry in Alberta, exactly, right? Like, and for God's sakes, Trudeau outright said, like, no country is going to leave the oil in the ground, right? Like, it's unreasonable to say that a country should leave the oil in the ground. It's like, no, it isn't. Like, it's super is not, right? Like, it's unreasonable for a person to not drink poison. Like, what's fucking wrong with your stupid brain? I mean, there's a lot wrong with Trudeau's brain. Like, he doesn't actually have thoughts. No, we need to surround the halls of power. Like, we need to stand up in mass protest. Like, we shouldn't walk by the halls of power. We should be hounding and harassing our leadership every day. Like, every day. They should have to walk by, like, thousands of people every single day who are harassing them because of their incompetence and psychopathic nature, right? Like, it's not even incompetence at this point. Like, they know, they understand. They're just psychopaths who are completely fine with destroying this place. And, like, all that's left is to surround them, right? And just force them to deal with you constantly. And that's the only way things actually get done, right? The trouble is that we're so gulled and we're so cowardly, right? We're very cowardly people who, like, we're so polite and we don't want to, that'll upset people. Yeah, that'll upset people. That'll upset psychopaths, for sure. For sure it will upset psychopaths. Like, just go keep selling your life to sell what? Like ice cream or something. Right, go work your job where you're, like, delivering pizza or whatever, right? While the place literally burns down, like, literally burns to the ground. Like, it's staggering to me that people are still participating, and it's staggering to me that anybody is saying, like, let's go back to normal. You're like, what the fuck? What the fuck are you talking about, dude? It's like you're telling your children to go work in a burning building. Like, what the fuck is wrong with your brain? Until we get to a hydrocarbon-free future, we do have to exist in this transitional phase. Yeah, I mean, we have to exist in the transitional phase, but, like, the transition should actually be happening, and it's not, right? That we're using, like, free market principles to do the transition, which is, like, let chaos reign, right? Like, we literally should be saying you can't sell fossil fuel cars. Full stop. You can't sell fossil fuel cars. Like, that should already have happened. That should have happened 10 years ago, right? We should be putting major caps on production and emissions. We should be driving this down. Like, lever being pulled. Like, if I saw the lever being pulled downwards, right, I would be talking a different game. But that's not what's happening. All I see is a guy with his hand on the lever saying, "Yeah, we'll pull it down." Yeah, we'll pull it down, guys. No, we got to pull this lever down for sure. Yeah, it's going to happen. It's going to happen. And then they push it up. Surround the halls of power. It's literally all we have left. Because they're not going to pull the lever down. Right? I don't know why that even needs to be stated. Right? It's obvious. They're not going to pull the lever down. They'll only start to pull the lever down when the oil is gone. Then they'll start pulling the lever down. Right? And we've sucked up the last possible drip of oil that could possibly exist on the entire planet. Yeah, we'll drop productivity, right? Oh, we've burnt the last possible drip of oil that could possibly be and spewed it into the atmosphere as much as we can. Oh yeah, okay, now we'll pull the lever down. That's what they're obviously doing. How gullible are we? Right? Very is the answer. The answer is extremely. We have to surround the halls of power. We don't have an alternative. There is no alternative. The alternative is literally just wildfires burning this place to the ground. And I can't stress to you guys enough, there's this kind of idea that exists in the world that catastrophes will happen, but we'll just deal with them as they happen and relocate and all this kind of stuff. It's not what's going to happen. It's not what's going to happen. When the town of Lytton burned down, the fire trucks burnt in the building with the town. It happened so quickly and so unexpectedly that the fire trucks didn't even have time to get mobilized. You understand? You understand? This wasn't oh, here it comes. Let's put up a wall. Let's get ready. Here it comes. It was poof, and it was done. That's what it's going to be like. You are going to be sitting in your apartment and you're going to go, man, today's a hot day, and then you'll be dead. That's what's going to happen. Maybe you'll be like, whew, man, I gotta get some water. And then you'll be dead. Because that's how it goes. Right? It's not going to be this slow motion, okay, everybody, let's gather our stuff up, and we've got to relocate for a very moment. That's not what it's going to be like. It's going to be instant. It's going to be literally you're waking up and going along your normal day, and then everything will be on fire, and then you will roast to death. That's what it's going to be. Right? Or you'll literally be in these concrete buildings that will suddenly be 150 degrees and you'll roast like a chicken. That's what it's gonna be. And these fucking dumbass liberals that are walking around being we can negotiate with the sun. Yeah, you could just negotiate with the sun. I'd like to speak to the manager of the sun, please. I'd like to talk to the manager of the sun. I don't like how this is going. I'd like to speak to the manager of the sun. They're gonna roast. They're going to roast. Their skin is going to blister and pop. You understand? I just don't understand why people are having this obvious mental constipation. Put a chicken in an oven, turn the oven on, and watch what happens. That's your future. And it's going to happen so quickly that you're not going to be able to escape it. You're talking about escaping the sun. What the fuck are you talking about? What the fuck are you talking about? It's a total. We're totally embarrassing. We're so arrogant. We're so full of ourselves. We're so certain that we can accomplish anything that we literally think that we are going to be able to trick or overcome or deceive or negotiate with the fucking sun. It's not how it's gonna go. It's not how it's gonna go. That once the carbon buildup gets into the sky and we're increasing productivity, thereby increasing emissions, so guaranteeing that it's gonna happen, the sun is gonna go poof, and we're gonna roast in our buildings as they melt You understand? As they melt around us. Like, that's what's going to happen. And to anybody who's like on the Christian side of this, talking about this, right? You know how God promised that he wasn't going to kill us with a flood? Well, he didn't say fuck all about a wildfire, did he? Like, it's grow up time. It's grow up time in serious and significant ways. It's time to grow up and be adults and realize that our leadership has betrayed us. It's betrayal, what we're experiencing. Like, these people should be arrested and incarcerated for treason. What they're doing to us. You understand? They're psychopaths who don't even care about their own children. Because when this place goes up and we roast in the streets and in the buildings, it's going to roast their children too, and they don't care. They don't care at all. All they care about is themselves and their own adventurism. And I genuinely do believe that in their high-level psychosis, they believe that eliminating this plane of existence is justified because this plane of existence is trying to kill them. And they're so narcissistic and so psychopathic that they genuinely believe that they are the only thing that matters. Surround the halls of power. Fight back. We have no alternative. Well, if you've made it to this point, like, share, subscribe, Patreon down below. Support leftist voices. Support people who are actually trying to ensure that you don't roast in a building. For real. Good luck. We're gonna need it. Yeah, they think escaping to New Zealand is gonna save them, but New Zealand's not special. Climate change doesn't discriminate. Yeah, what, you think New Zealand doesn't get hit with the sun? Like, what are you talking about? Like, we're just a culture of total children. We're infantile children who literally are standing around being like, but I'm special and I'm so like the world was made for me. I'm the best. Everybody's just an NPC around, and I'm just gonna speak to the manager. Like, fuck you. Like, these people are gonna have a rude awakening, man. It's gonna be like, well, it's not even gonna be a rude awakening, right? Like, when the building is melting, maybe they'll have a second where they go, oh, maybe I should have done something about that, and then they'll be dead. Like, and we just keep voting for it. That's the best part. We just keep voting for it. Like, the obvious frauds and liars. Like, we just keep voting for these guys who are obviously abandoning us, who are obviously trying to murder us, who obviously don't give a shit about their own children, who obviously don't care. Like, obviously don't. Like, it's so obvious, right? Like, it's like you're walking into a room and they're just like stabbing your father in the face with a knife. And you're like, hey, have you seen my dad? And they're like, no, I haven't seen your dad. And you're like, oh, okay. And you like walk off. Like, that's the level of obviousness that we're talking about. Like, wouldn't it be great if somebody made a film about this? About someone who is so fucking clueless and just like that it's obviously in front of them. I wonder how long it would take the audience before they started to like scream at the screen at such a person who's just obviously getting abused and witnessing abuse and witnessing like this unfolding horror show and just like walking around in like a dazed cluelessness, like refusing to acknowledge what is real in front of their faces. Like, and at this point it is outright a refusal. Like, it's not that they're like mistaken, or it's not that it's like they're not quite putting the pieces together. It's literally they see the picture. It's right there. They're just refusing to acknowledge the reality of the situation, right? Because to do so would require thought, right? Because you can't speak to the manager of it. Like, ugh. Somebody put this on my Discord. I haven't actually watched it, but let's watch it all together.
Have you ever been told that
it's only a
some
minute.
radical idea, like the abolition of capitalism on the state and the creation of networks of egalitarian communities, goes against human nature? Ever wondered what human nature even is? There are many philosophies of human nature. Some people say it's violence and hierarchy. Others say it's peace and equality. But I think the best way to understand human nature is to take a look at grasshoppers and locusts. Grasshoppers are elegant, solitary insects that live quiet lives in meadows. Locusts are demons on earth that join together in hungry biblical swarms, but grasshoppers and locusts are the same species. The transformation is triggered by a change of circumstances that lead to overcrowding and limited food supplies. Human DNA hasn't changed much since our egalitarian, pre-agricultural days, and we've lived in all sorts of arrangements. But in relatively recent times, our circumstances have changed. Unlike locusts, we have enough resources to support everyone comfortably, but systems are in place to keep us in place and keep us fighting each other. Systems we can fight together.
Yeah, cool. I like the analogy. Like that's actually accurate, right? Like that. Yeah, grasshoppers. It's the same with boars. Like a pig who's like, you think about a pig like Babe, right? Who's like a cute little piggy. Ha 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 ha. If you take that pig and you put it in the wild, it literally grows tusks and like its fur becomes bristly. It becomes a boar, right? And it's the same with capitalism, right? That if everything's nice and everything's going well, then you got your like nice little social democracy, right? But when things get tough and when it gets threatened, it turns into fascism. Like it's all connected. What does Ontario's minimum wage increase mean for the grocery sector? Well, higher prices for a start. Here's what industry groups, RCC, and this had to say. What does minimum wage increases mean? We asked the executives of conglomerate grocery companies and they said it'll lead to higher prices. Seriously, this is something CBC Pitchbot would say is parody. Yeah, like, this is something I say all the time. And a big sign of how we know that these guys aren't journalists. Like, none of these people are journalists, right? Like, you don't go ask the beneficiaries of a system what they think of like a change. Like, you go ask the economists, you go ask the people who have studied it, you go ask the experts, right? You don't go fucking ask the fucking owners of the business, right? Like, you're literally going up to like Mr. Krabs, right? Mr. Krabs, what do you think about the minimum wage increase? Oh, it's horrible. Be less money for me, right? Like, no. That's a pretty good Mr. Krabs, eh? I could work on the laugh a little bit. Clancy Jones, what a champion. Arr. Oh, me SpongeBob. SpongeBob, me boy. It's a little bit, he's a little bit like Cookie Monster. Cookie Monster's down in here. Oh, hello. Yeah, this is how you know you live in like a psychopathic death cult, right? The problem is that solar panels generate lots of electricity in the middle of sunny days, frequently more than what's required, driving down prices, sometimes even into negative territory. The problem with solar is we can't monopolize the sun or make it scarcer than it is. Like, we are ruled by psychopaths. I just don't know what else we need to see. Yeah, minimum wage increase will lead to wage theft and sadistic management practices. Those are already happening, Rob. That's already, like, the number one form of theft is wage theft. And it's not even close, right? Like, when you compare it to, like, burglary or, like, Grand Theft Auto or, like, any other form of theft, the number one form of theft is already wage theft by a huge margin. By a huge margin. Like, these capitalists are obvious psychopaths. Like, it's insane. And even more than that, they have every reason to try to do it, right? Because if you steal a car, right? If you go and steal a car, or if you steal money from a cash register or something like this, you can get charged with theft and you can do jail time, right? If you steal wages and the person goes through the legal process to get their wages from you, the worst penalty you will ever receive is that you have to pay those wages. There's no jail time associated with it. There's nothing personal that happens to the person attempting to try to steal. So the person doing the wage theft is completely incentivized to do it. Why shouldn't they? Why shouldn't they? Right? Worst case scenario, they have to pay the wage. Best case scenario, they get the money. They should absolutely do it 100% of the time. Again, like, do you need any more examples of how this place is a fucking death cult? Like, they're incentivized to steal your wages, so they do. The problem with solar is that we cannot profit off a basic necessity. Yeah, good. I mean, like, it is going to get to the point where solar panels are going to get affordable enough that people are going to be able to have them. Like, they're already fairly affordable, honestly. Like, I could get a solar panel, right? It would be a bit of an investment, but like, will that be true in 10 years? Right? In 10 years' time, will solar panels be so cheap that anybody can get them and anybody can have them? Like, just hang them out your window, right? Have like a lithium battery and just charge it. And that's like the power, because individuals are using such small amounts of power in the first place. Like, and then could that all connect to the grid and all that kind of shit? Like, but of course, because we're ruled by this fucking death cult, they're not interested in that. They're interested in burning fossil fuels. That's what they're interested in. And at this stage, I can't even say it's about the money. Like, I think that they are actually trying to destroy the place. Like, I really do think that it is, like, getting to that, like, high-level villainy. Right? All right. I'm going to pause for a minute and play some music. Anybody have a request? Anybody want to hear anything? Hope you're okay, sweetie. There is a house in New Orleans they call the Rising Sun. It's been the ruin of many a dear boy, and God, I know I'm one. My mama was a tailor. She sewed my new blue jeans. Papa was a gambling man down in New Orleans. Now the only thing a gambler needs is a suitcase and a gun, and the only time he's satisfied is when he's on a drug. I got one foot on the platform, the other's on the train. I'm heading down to New Orleans to wear that ball and chain. Head back to New Orleans, man. I didn't realize how sad that song actually was until I started playing it more as a ballad. So I'm going to play a tune now that was played by Virginia coal miners during the Union struggles. What would happen Poor Sweetie fell over and now she's a bit out of tune. So people would go to work in the Virginia coal mines with the promise of high wages. Those wages were paid. But what wasn't told to the people who were spending their life savings and spending everything they had to get to those coal mines was that the land around the coal mine, as well as the store where you bought all your goods, was owned by the company that owned the coal mine. And the only way you could get any goods was from the company's store. And the prices that they set for the rent and for the goods was higher than the wage that they paid. And so the only way that you could continue to survive in this circumstance while being a fucking Virginia coal miner was to go into debt to the company's store. This leads, of course, to the massive union struggle and the massive labor strikes throughout this period of time, and ultimately leads to the Battle of Blair Mountain, as well as the first aerial bombardment on American soil from a corporation dropping a bomb on striking workers. This is their song. Some people say a man is made out of mud. Poor man's made of muscle and blood and skin and bone, and a mind that's weak and a back that's strong. You load 16 tons and what do you get? Another day older and deeper in debt. St. Peter, don't you call me, 'cause I can't go. I owe my soul to the company store. Well, if you see me coming, you better step aside. A lot of men didn't and a lot of men died. I got one fist of iron and the other's of steel. The right one don't get you, the left one will. You load 16 tons and what do you get? Another day older and deeper in debt. St. Peter, don't you call me, 'cause I can't go. I owe my soul to the company store. Well, a poor man's there to suffer and bleed, to pay for a rich man's wealth and greed. Take this here shovel, get down in that earth. The money you make me, that's all that you're worth. You load 16 tons and what do you get? Another day older and deeper in debt. St. Peter, don't you call me, 'cause I can't go. I owe my soul. Whoa! You load 16 tons and what do you get? Another day older and deeper in debt. St. Peter, don't you call me, 'cause I can't go. I owe my soul to the company store. And that is the system that they are trying to put back in place. That is what they are trying to do to us again. And we keep voting for it. Unbelievable. Staggering, in fact, that we continue to support this overt and obvious attempt to return us back to this slave system, this wage slave system. And we're just complacent and just gullibly going along with it. Unbelievable what we're doing. unbelievable what we're doing. Future generations, should there be any, will look back at us with the same kind of confusion that we have towards the rise of Nazis, the collapse of the Roman Empire, this bemused, like, well, why didn't they do something about it? Good fucking question. Good fucking question. It's like literally reason one why I do this channel. I refuse to let anybody say that I did not do nothing. Fuck that shit. Fuck that shit. Like, surround the halls of power. Fuck these guys. We have gone completely psychotic. We can do better. We should do better. Fuck all these guys. All right. I'm going to play one more. I don't know what I'm going to play. Maybe I'll play that one. Yeah, I'm going to play this one. Psychos sold a package of lies, spun their stories and purchased the skies. Now they're robbing us in front of our eyes. They get off watching your children dying. The ghouls who claim to run this place, they don't know wrong from right. They're trying to kill the human race. I won't go down without a fight. Raise the banners, take up the cause. Suicidal nations don't have any laws. Lift up your heads and take out your claws. Watch what happens when your apathy thaws. And the ghouls who claim to run this place, they don't know wrong from right. They're trying to kill the human race. I won't go down without a fight. These fascists, break all their bones. Take everything away, don't leave them alone. Bury them beneath a mountain of stone. They're evil, we won't forgive or condone. And the ghouls who claim to run this place, they don't know wrong from right. They're trying to kill the human race. I won't go down without a fight. Won't go down without a fight. Yeah. That song kicks ass. This fucking song kicks ass. If I ever met anybody who tried to tell me that that song doesn't kick ass, I would say, shut the fuck up. Go write a blog post about it. God damn. Ugh. Alright, sweetie. You stay put. Don't fall over this time. Alright. Hope you guys are all doing well. Hope you guys are all doing well. Anytime I start playing music, the chat gets really quiet. It makes me skittish. I gotta be honest. It makes me a bit skittish. I'm like sitting here playing this music, and I worry like, oh no, they're all leaving because they hate the music. Everybody's like dead silent. I'm looking forward to getting back into like live music, man. Playing in front of people. That's the way should go. Like this is the way this should go. Oh well. I hope you're all doing well. I hope everything's going well for you. Oh yeah, this is an example. Here's a great example of how fucking like what capitalism does to a motherfucker, right? How like detached and ridiculous people become. What's the best way to disassemble raspberries? Like this, but down to the individual seeds. I've been pulling them apart with tweezers, and it's really time consuming. I have about 10 pounds to get through this weekend. I am beyond curious as to why you need to do this. Please explain. It's a really, really stupid reason. Suffice it to say that someone is willing to pay our venue a lot of money to do it. Vegan caviar looking thing? No, that would actually be less stupid. I didn't want to share this because it's going to derail me getting some actual technique suggestions with a million follow-up questions, but since you all are too curious, it's a Bridezilla artist's amazing idea for confetti. To preempt the inevitable questions, yes, we have attempted to convince her that there are other forms of biodegradable confetti that would be less expensive and just as harmless. We have done tests with the bride and only completely disassembled raspberries float through the air in the manner she wants. Any chunks ruin the effect. No, she is not worried about her dress. In fact, she considers the red stains a feature. Besides looking amazing, she wants her wedding to feed the local animals. Our venue is in the woods. Yes, we have confirmed that the local animals eat raspberries. She is actually paid for an environmental study to ensure no lasting impact. Yes, we are worried that the animals are going to keep coming back to us for food. The environmental firm she hired said that due to the nature of the raspberries, it won't create lasting dependency as long as we otherwise clear all food scraps from the venue. We always do. The confetti will be hand-tossed using scoops to protect the guests' hands. We will have the scoops preloaded so the guests aren't mashing the big bucket of raspberries. Yes, she is absolutely 100% certain that this is what she wants. No, I won't tell you what she's paying us. Yes, it is worth it, even if I have to hire 20 temps to help us pull the damned thing apart. But we need better techniques that we can train them with first, because what we are doing now is slow and mashing the seeds a little. Yes, we already tried freezing them, didn't really help, and they were mushy when they were thawed. No, the wedding is not this weekend. The 10 pounds we were doing this weekend are for the first rehearsal. Depending upon how that goes, we'll either be doing another 10 pounds in a few weeks or possibly much more. This is what I'm fucking talking about, okay? This is like peak liberal shit right here, okay? That like, we have allowed a person to have so much extravagant wealth that they are able to have 20 plus people meticulously pull apart raspberries so that they can throw them at her as confetti for a wedding. Fuck you. Anybody who is saying, how you gonna pay for that? Anybody who's saying that kind of garbage shit, how are we going to pay for that? By preventing ludicrous, dumbass liberals from doing this kind of wasteful nonsense. That's how, right? This absurdist, dumbass, crazy bitch bullshit that should not be tolerated at all. Like, at all. Like, this can you imagine anything more masturbatorial than this? This is this woman's equivalent of shooting a rocket into space. Like, it's so fucking absurd that this is the life that she wants and that she's going to get it. There's literally no one around her that has said no. Right? There's no one around her that said no. And she's willing to spend, even if you take just the information we have, they can hire 20 temps, right? So even if it's only an hour of work, which it isn't, and you're only paying them, let's say this is in America, so $7.25 an hour, right? You're still spending upwards of like $200 just to get this effect, not including the raspberries themselves. And they're probably charging her like $1,000. Like, this is some peak liberal shit right here, dude. And the reason why I keep saying peak liberal is because she's like done an environmental assessment, right? Like she's more concerned about the animals than the workers. Really, is what it comes down to. Is that she's more concerned about the little Bambis and the little bunnies and all that kind of stuff than she is about the fucking workers she's exploiting. Like, yeah, I know you guys are all working in and out and all that kind of stuff. I know. It's just, it's my ego. That's it. It's just my ego. That's all. I'm just sitting here like playing my music and being like, and then the audience will cheer and the seas of people will throw flowers at me and beautiful women will flock to me. And, you know, when the song ends, I'm just kind of like sitting here and I'm just like, okay, well, moving on. It's just completely ego. That's all it is. It's totally, that's all it is. So don't bother. Don't worry. Don't worry about me. Yeah, it's so weird how nobody ever asks how we pay for the endless wars or the billions in tax breaks as we give to the richest people on earth. But the second someone mentions policy to vastly improve millions of lives, Grandpa breaks out the fucking abacus. Yeah. Yeah, it's like money makes every idea a good idea if someone will pay. That's the major flaw, right? Like this is how the neoliberals actually talk about this, right? It's supply and demand. And there's no question of like, well, yeah, but some people's demands are psychotic, right? Like, if your demand is to like go and murder people, well, we don't let that happen, right? So like all of these like petty bourgeoisie kind of ridiculous, like there's literally homeless people. Like this is what I don't get about this conversation at all from these fucking dumbass liberals. There's literally homeless people. And their response is like always like, well, what do you want me to do about that? Give your money to the poor. Like it's very, very fucking straightforward. Right? And I can respect why liberals wouldn't think this way because they don't fucking read the Bible or any of that shit. Right? But the conservatives, the people who are actually walking around holding this book, like the hero of the story literally tells people to give their money to the poor. Like very unequivocally. Like extremely straightforward. Extremely straightforward. Right? How about instead of paying to have these dumbass raspberries torn apart so that they can be thrown at you, you fucking take all of the money you were going to do that and instead just give it to the poor. How about that? They just think they got better jobs. Oh my God. Yeah, this is just the idle rich, exactly. They have nothing to do. They've got nothing. Like this is what happens when you just give people all of this money. Like this is why I say, man, like we should make it so that there is a cap on wealth, not earnings, wealth. And I think that cap should be at most $10 million. I mean, if I really reach into my heart and pull out what I think is actually true, I think $1 million is fine. But let's say $10 million, just so that people can be a little bit extravagant, right? So that they can have their house and their cottage and their yacht. Let's just go like let's have them have their like minor extravagancies, right? Anything above $10 million, get fucked. Like get completely fucked. The only thing you want to do with money above $10 million is dominate and control and hurt everybody else. That's all you want to do, right? And I don't care if you want to be cute and kicky while you do it. Yeah, if Finland fixed their homeless problem, they can certainly fix it in Canada. Exactly. And you know how they fixed it? They gave homes to the homeless. Whoa! Whoa! Man, there's poor people around. What should we do? Maybe we should give them money. Whoa! I don't think Jesus meant those poors. Supply side Jesus didn't like those ones. Yeah, supply side Jesus is one of the greatest creations ever, by the way. Like, really, supply side Jesus. Yeah, the gospel of supply side Jesus. Pontius Pilate summons our hero. Bring me this king of the Jews that I might meet him, this supply side Jesus. So, you are this supply side Jesus. What a magnificent robe you have. Because of this robe, 10 craftsmen were able to feed their families. The goldsmith who made the trim and the filigree was able to hire an apprentice because I paid him so handsomely. And what a beautiful haircut you have, supply side Jesus. The barber who gave me this haircut was able to hire a manicurist. She had been a prostitute, but because I needed a pedicure, she is now able to fulfill her true potential. Yes, the cuticles are absolutely perfect. There are those in Jerusalem who are not happy with your radical nude teachings, supply side Jesus. Watch yourself. Shouldn't you feed the lepers, supply side Jesus? No, Thomas, that would just make them lazy. Then shouldn't you at least heal them, supply side Jesus? No, James, leprosy is a matter of personal responsibility. If people knew I was healing leopards, there would be no incentive to avoid leprosy. Supply side Jesus, I think I've got a great line for your Sermon on the Mount. It is easier for a camel to pass through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to enter heaven. For shame, Peter! That is class warfare! But it does give me an idea. It's easier for a rich man to enter heaven seated comfortably on the back of a camel than it is for a poor man to pass through the eye of a needle. Wink. If you are prosperous on earth, that means that God is rewarding your rugged individualism. If you are poor, it is a sign that God frowns on your reliance on handouts. The only way to gain entrance into God's kingdom of abundance is to show your faith by giving to Him through His only Son, me, supply side Jesus. My disciples will now pass among you. And he who gives more than 1,000 shekels will become a supply side Jesus pioneer and have access to me at our annual Yom Kippur break the fast dinner. The word of the Lord. This very night one of you will betray me to pay off a gambling debt. No, not me, no, not me. Benedict Iscariot, oh boy. Supply side Jesus was arrested that very night and brought before Pontius Pilate. Supply side Jesus, the Pharisees are angry. They say you are cutting into their action. That's the marketplace of ideas, Pilate. But your ideas are misleading and are making the poor even poorer. What do you say to that, supply side Jesus? Pilate, average income is going up, and social mobility within the Roman Empire is greater than ever. Look at me. I came from the humblest roots, and yet now I am one of the richest men in all Judea. That's because you're a huckster, supply side Jesus. I sentence you to death by crucifixion. It was Passover custom to release a condemned prisoner. Pilate decided to let the people choose supply side Jesus' fate. Who would you have me release? This man, supply side Jesus, who claims to be your king and insists you stand on your own 2 feet? Or in this case of you leopards, the good foot and stump? Or this man, Jesus Christ of Nazareth, who also claims to be your king and preaches a gospel of compassion, generosity, and good works? 20 shekels for anyone who votes for me. Give us supply side Jesus. Forgive them, Father. Supply side Jesus knew just what to do. Romans, tax cuts will double our revenues and ensure that the empire never declines or falls. And I will stop these environmentalists who claim that lead is poisoning our water system. And I will eliminate the threat from Mesopotamia once and for all by invading Iraq. This is a real piece of work, man. Like this is like an amazing art piece. This is. The gospel of supply side Jesus, absolutely incredible. Absolutely incredible. Like, manages to really capture. And this moment here is especially poignant when they give them a choice between supply side Jesus and Jesus Christ himself. And a simple bribe swings them in supply side Jesus' way. Like, very poignant. It's funny because the Romans did consume lead in their wine. Yeah. Well, and a lot of people actually are, there's a lot of speculation on that, like, a lot of the decision-making that gets made in the Roman Empire around this time, it looks like symptoms of lead poisoning to me. Like, a lot of people are acting fairly erratically. A lot of people doing some very strange and odd things. And it's like, yeah, maybe this is just like their brain going lead poison, right? There's even some people who are speculating that that Americans put a lot of lead in their shit too. And so you've got a lot of craziness happening now because of the symptoms of lead poisoning. Yes, and what happened after they gave their homes to homeless? Some of them actually found jobs and paid taxes, and their mental health improved. The death cult isn't interested in helping people. What are you talking about? The exact opposite. The exact opposite. The death cult doesn't want to help people. It's funny because the Romans did consume lead in their wine, yeah? Good times. Yeah, again, here's a great example. Craig Kielburger's mom launched a $3 million lawsuit accusing Canada Land of being fake news. So this is the definition of a frivolous lawsuit that can only be undertaken by someone who has too much money. A $3 million lawsuit? Like, imagine having $3 million to just throw at an independent journalist, right? Like, that's what's happening. And no wonder people are crushed, right? Like $3 million? How are you going to fight that? It's, the problem is the extravagance of wealth itself. That's the problem. The problem is, very straightforwardly, that people have access to too much money. And there's no cap on it. There's no sense that we need to say to these people, okay, enough is enough, right? Like, we have no laws in place to prevent monopolization, right? That the way we deal with monopolization in this country is on a one-to-one basis. So you have to see that the thing is a monopoly, then you have to argue in court that it's a monopoly, and then they'll be willing to do something about that one monopoly. When we could actually put a mechanism in place to prevent monopolization in the first place, and the way to do that is to prevent the mass accumulation of wealth in the first place. Straight out. Just like, nope, you can't do it. And if you're getting to the point where, like, oh, we're reaching that cap, right, and we can't expand any further because of the cap, too bad. Straight up, too bad. Somebody else will do it, right? There's your fucking competition now, right? It wasn't the argument of the free market always that, oh, they'll be competitors? Well, if you put a cap, they'll actually be competitors, right? Well, then why should I bother growing or trying to, well, then don't. Let someone else do it. Like, I'm done with these petty children who are constantly trying to convince me to hand them the power of the nation so that they can, like, live these childish fantasies. And that's all they are. They're just power fantasies, right? All they want is just to be, I'm so big and powerful. I'm the best. Me. That's all it is. It's not anything deeper than that. It's just wanting to live out ridiculous, childish power fantasies. Like, what do you think's going on with all these big fucking trucks? Like, what do you think all that's? It's just living out childish power fantasies, right? Like, human beings only really are motivated by three things, right? Power, vengeance, and love, right? Do you think that our culture is motivated by love? No, certainly not. Do you think that it's motivated by vengeance? Certainly power, though. And that's all this is about. It's all so that, like, these small-minded children, like Jeff Bezos, can just live out this power fantasy of being like, yeah, I have a spaceship. Like, what's wrong with us? Like, we think this is a good idea? Really? I would much rather live in a culture that was motivated by love. I would much rather have a culture that looked at people in the society and said, we need to do everything we can to ensure the base safety of everyone. Right? Like, and the idea that we're like, oh, if you do that, then people will just be lazy. I literally am to the point now where I'm like, I don't care. Like, I don't care. Right? I would rather have a nation of lazy people sitting around doing nothing than what we're doing now. By a large margin, too. It's not close. Like, it's not close. Like, what we're doing now is literally going to burn the place to the ground. So, absolutely, I would rather have a nation of lazy people sitting around doing nothing. Which I don't believe is going to happen. But let's take your worst case scenario and just be like, yeah, that's still better than this. By a lot. By like leaps and bounds better. Because that's not going to burn the place down. Like, that's how psychotic we've become. That literally the idea that, like, people are going to be lying around and be lazy, that's abhorrent to us. But murdering our own children through fire and apocalypse, completely fine. Normal. Cool and normal. Like, that's how psychotic our culture is now. It's indefensible. Like, how do you defend this position? And, like, the only reason these, like, psychotic capitalists are allowed to continue going around spewing their venomous bullshit is because they're so rich that they can just afford to not put people who are going to confront them on TV, right? They just exclude people. That if it wasn't for, like, things like YouTube or anything, no one would ever, like, they would never publish someone like me. Like, it would never happen. And so this is what we're doing here, right? You guys are elevating me to a point where they can no longer ignore someone like me. So that I can look them in the eyes, someone like Kevin O'Leary, and say, you're a psychopath. I'm trying to destroy the culture that vomited out you. Yes, I want to destroy the economy. Yes, I want to strip your assets away. Yes, I want to incarcerate you. Yes, your worst nightmares of my intentions are completely accurate because you're a psychopath. That's the point of this channel. Get me so big that they've got to do something about me. Let's go. Let's go. Oh, man. They'll probably just shoot me, honestly. Or get me with the cancer gun. They love the cancer gun. I gotta report on this one again. Man. Food bank visits hit new record with 1.45 million visits recorded in Toronto in 1 year. They broke the record of how many visits they had from the 2008 financial collapse. That the record was set during the 2008 financial collapse has now been superseded. Look what happens when you remove people's support systems. Look what happens. Oh yeah, food banks are spiking. Meanwhile, the food banks of Canada are saying we shouldn't have food banks. We should implement a basic income. That's what they're saying. Yeah. Also worth restating, November 27th, 5 p.m., Alberta's NDP Socialist Caucus. This is actually getting set up by a member of, by one of my Patreons. One of my Patreons is actually setting up an Alberta NDP Socialist Caucus. Trying to get a virtual meet and greet, trying to get things involved. If you want to know more or talk to them, donate $1 to my Patreon. We'll get you into the Discord. You can meet up. looks like so it looks like it's working, right? Looks like it's working. People are coming in and they're meeting and they're connecting and they're finding out how to move forward. This is strong and this is powerful. I'm glad to see that this is happening. Oh, I know, buddy. I know. What's going on? What's going on? I know, buddy. You want love and cuddles, huh? Don't we all want love and cuddles these days, guys? I hope you can find somebody who can at least give you a hug. I hope you can find somebody who's at least giving you a hug. It's tough these days, finding people to just give you a little bit of love, you know? UBC, the University of British Columbia, cancels talk featuring speaker who calls portrayal of residential school graves a hoax. Yeah. What's the name of this guy? This week, senior university staff were made aware of a November 17th talk on Canvas that was booked by the UBC Students for Freedom of Expression. To be clear, this was not an event sponsored by anyone at the university. The host of the event is an external group that is not endorsed. Although the university does and will continue to support academic freedom, we believe proceeding with this event would adversely affect campus and community safety. Like, no, get fucked. Like, get fucked. Straight up. Like, too bad. Like, I'm completely fine with this. Like, it's not freedom of expression to like, it'd be like having a Holocaust denier. Like, get fucked. Hey, Loaf is attending the virtual meet and greet. There we go. See, we're all making it happen. We're getting it together. You guys are going to take over Alberta. Wouldn't that be great? Huh? Don't you think? Wouldn't that be great if, like, an offshoot of this channel actually did seize power somewhere? I would just be like, yes, let's go. Let's go. I'm gonna turn into like the kooky wizard off in the corner. What do you think? Like I'm literally gonna get an owl. I'll have like an owl on my shoulder, and you'll be telling me about what's going on, and I'll be like, that's interesting. Perhaps you should, and that'll be like my role in all of this. I'll be like the insane wizard. I'll like pull out a book and be like, well, let's see, and all of this, right? What do you think? What do you think? What do you think, Loaf? You think I can become Merlin? You don't want to go up? You're giving me all the signs that you want to go up. Do you want to come up? Oh, you want to do it yourself? Okay, you can't do it yourself. Okay, you want to do it yourself? Then do it yourself. Here, come over here. Come over here. Come here. Now come up. Up. You can do it. Up. Good boy. Blah, 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 blah. No. Bread hat. Loaf is just like, no, John. If you are not wearing the bread hat, I cannot take you seriously. All right, Loaf, you got a good point. You got a good point. That's even funnier, eh? You'd be like talking to me. You're like, like the leader of like a municipal whatever or something like this. I'm sitting here in like a hat, like the bread hat. Got my pug on my lap. You're like telling me about something very serious, and I'm like, Ugh. Man, I should have done that bread hat for Halloween. I should have done it. Oh well. I want to report on this one again because it's so rare these days that we actually get good news. Canadians were asked, immigration levels are too high. 65% of us said we disagree with that statement. Immigration levels are too high. Most of us said, no, that's fine. Only 29% of us, so conservatives, said that they agree with that statement. So this is an overwhelming majority of people. And the reason why I say that this is good news is that I'm always fearful for minority groups in a white supremacist nation like ours, right? That we are a white supremacist nation. We are grappling with the reality of what that means as a people. I do believe that there are sections of the society that are acknowledging this and are attempting to ameliorate it and move the society away from being a white supremacist society. although we don't know how to do that. Like, we don't really know how to do that, but we are interested in doing that. And when I see a figure like this that says 65% of us are still like, yeah, immigration levels, come on in, like, that's fine. There's something that speaks to me about it being like, no, we're fine if, like, minority groups and other people from other cultures want to come in and settle here. Like, that's completely fine. But of course, as I'm saying it, the cynic inside of me says, like, yeah, I'm sure a good amount of those people are saying, yeah, let's bring in more slaves. Let's bring in some more cheap labor slaves that we can exploit. Dang it, John. Why I got to do that? Why'd I got to do that? I had a good narrative going on there. We're being accepting and open to wage slaves. Shit. Butts. Why Ontario and all of Canada need a wealth tax, by Fred Hahn. It was the best of times, it was the worst of times, famously opens Charles Dickens' A Tale of Two Cities. The line also perfectly describes the growing income and wealth inequality in Ontario, a tale of two provinces that compels us to finally institute a wealth tax. In the tale of one of the provinces, it's the worst of times, where Ontarians are stretched thin and increasingly worried about their futures. As a recent report by Food Banks Canada shows, demand at food banks across the country has increased, with Ontario being one of three provinces seeing visits going up the most. This tale is one where the minimum wage will reach $15 an hour, still well below the living wage, a whole 3 years after it was initially scrapped by the Ford Conservatives, costing workers $5,300. Bill 124 is still on the books, restraining wage and benefit increases below the rate of inflation for hundreds of thousands of public sector workers. Housing costs are skyrocketing and the rent freeze is set to end January 1st, even as many still haven't recovered from a pandemic that, let's not forget, isn't even over yet. It's a tale of a province where social assistance rates haven't increased since 2018 and have been woefully low for decades, with monthly rents rising well above recipients' monthly incomes. It's one where injured workers are confronted by the Ford Conservatives bragging about passing surplus funds onto employers, not the workers attempting to recover. In this tale, Ontarians contracted COVID-19 and died from it at higher rates, lost their jobs, lost hours, and lost their homes. Meanwhile, there's the tale of the other province, where it's the best of times, so long as you are rich or a large corporation. Just before the World Health Organization declared COVID-19 a global pandemic, a Financial Accountability of Ontario released a report showing that the income inequality gap in the province was widening. If you're in the top 1% here, you're earning well over $500,000 a year. The richest 1% of Canadians had more than a quarter of the wealth, and the 87 richest families across the country were wealthier than the least 12 million Canadians, with so many being racialized and new Canadians. In our tale of two provinces, that gap between the rich and the rest of us, along with the big corporate profits, only grew during the pandemic. Within just a handful of months after COVID-19 uprooted our lives, Canada's richest 20 billionaires got richer by $37 billion, with billionaires like Ontario's Galen Weston taking back pandemic pay bumps for minimum wage grocery store workers while making record profits. This is the tale of a province where a very small yet extremely powerful group of people found and capitalized on tax breaks and loopholes, played accounting tricks, and gave themselves bonuses while wielding growing political influence to lobby against paid sick days for frontline workers. In the face of this, the Ford Conservatives, who consistently claim they're on the side of the little guy, actually bent over backwards to support Ontario's wealthiest at the expense of the rest of us. They made backroom deals for their rich developer buddies while cutting corporate taxes for profitable companies and extending electric subsidies for the Amazons, Shoppers Drug Marts, and the Loblaws of the world, costing our province more than $6 billion a year. The Conservatives hoarded billions, likely to pay for their future election promises, that could have bolstered our critical public services, supported small businesses, and provided immediate income supports for those most impacted by this crisis. But even in the face of all this grift and the gifts for corporations, there's undeniably hope that we can tell another tale. A tale of one province where it's the best of times for all. Whether it's because of the Pandora Papers or because of the reaction to Jeff Bezos going to space, while everyday people are just barely getting through the month, a wealth tax, one critical tool to bridge the gap between the rich and everyone else, is increasingly popular. You can see it in the fact that a federal wealth tax was just recently heatedly debated in the United States, in G20 finance ministers agreeing on a 15% tax on multinational corporations, and in the Abacus data poll from this summer showing that 89% of Canadians want a wealth tax. You can also see it in the growing recognition that even a small wealth tax can go a very long way, with studies saying that a 1% tax on wealth over $20 million in Canada would bring in $10 billion. It's time for a wealth tax instituted by all levels of government, including the province of Ontario. And with a provincial election on the horizon, it's time to turn up the volume on this idea. It's achievable, it's just, it's popular, and it will play an important role in ensuring the best of times for every Ontarian. Fred Hahn is the president of CUPE Ontario. I am not innately against a wealth tax. I just think it's a negotiation with a psychopath class that isn't really actually that interested in negotiating. Like, if you... just as Stalin tried to negotiate with the kulaks, right? We will see that as we attempt to negotiate with these capitalists, they will gladly burn the place down if it means that you don't get anything either, right? That's exactly how they will act. That when it comes time for them to give up the goods, they'll simply burn it down. So, because if they can't have it, neither can you. Because these are treasonous psychopaths. That's who they are, that's what they are. They're not interested in building a just society. They're not interested in your best times. They're not interested in justice or truth or empathy or compassion or any of that. They're interested in money for themselves. Full stop, period. Nothing else matters to them. The lives of their own children don't matter to them. Like, I genuinely don't know what needs to be seen at this point. So while it's great and all that everybody's standing up and being like, a 1% tax on the what? Like, it's such a small, tiny, like, who gives a fuck about this? Like, a 1% tax? Are you kidding me? What a joke. Like, what a total fucking joke. These people are psychopaths. Like to me, that's no different than saying, like, Jeffrey Dahmer should just, well, we should at least get him to do some community service. Right? Just get Jeffrey Dahmer to do some community service. That'll do it. Right? Nailed him. Got it. No. Lock Jeffrey Dahmer away for the rest of his life. Like, anything less than that, and I would be like, what the fuck? Like, what the fuck are you talking about? And it's exactly how I feel about these psychopaths. Like, we seem to believe that greed is... We actually do genuinely believe as a people that greed is somehow virtuous. That it's somehow virtuous to be greedy. We understand that murder is bad, but we don't seem to understand that, like, hoarding wealth is just as bad. Like... Well, I'm out of stuff, but I only got 15 minutes left. Let's ride the wave. Let's ride the wave. Let's see what new news has popped up while I've been talking. Memes. Oh yes, a new one has come out by Cody Shoddy. Some more news. There, I did it. The Some More News guy. I'm very, very impressed with his work. His work is very, very impressive. Highly researched, really, really well executed, really important, cool stuff. Really glad to see. And I also really like the position. Sorry, guys. Really like the position that he's taking with the millennial and the boomer conversation, right? That he really is of the opinion, and I agree with him actually, that the boomer versus millennial narrative is completely unhelpful and is in fact quite dumb. That it is about the economic system itself, and that by focusing on boomers versus millennials, you're not actually focusing on how the economic structure has been decimated, right? It is somewhat cathartic to shake your fist and be like, boomers, but I agree, it's not really that helpful, especially because like I do think that as the boomers begin to learn more about the reality of what's going on, that's been the major success, I think, of the capitalist class, is convincing the boomers that the economy that they grew up in is the same economy that exists today. Like that they literally do not understand what is happening. And when you actually walk a boomer through it, like they come around. Unless they're like absolutely duplicitous, but they come around. So essentially what I'm saying is we should abandon the generation war and come together and join forces, right? Because the boomers don't want to be responsible for abandoning their own children. That's not the legacy they want to leave behind, right? It is the legacy that is being left behind. But if they realize that that's their legacy, they're going to fight in order to ensure that that's not the case, right? Why wouldn't they? What do I got? Yeah, not much. Like I said, today was a real slow news day. Yeah, here's exactly Americanism right. I love Japanese humor and culture. Perfect mix of being super polite, modest, and then cheeky. Somebody points out, this is Chinese. Her response, oh, well, then I don't like it at all. Yikes. Xi Jinping and Joe Biden just recently had a virtual face-to-face. So instead of anybody going anywhere, they just did it over Operation Paperclip. Boomers were raised as fascists. Yeah. I think and that gets into something interesting, Grinning, that is definitely worth talking about, which is that I'm actually very sympathetic to boomers generally because they were the first generation to experience television propaganda, right? Screen-based propaganda. And it's obviously messed with them. That's pretty obvious, right? It's pretty obvious how badly it's messed with them. And I'm very, very sympathetic to them because of this. That by the time we get to the millennials, this stuff is somewhat ubiquitous, right? We're somewhat used to it, right? Television and media and all this kind of stuff is all around us all the time, and we're a couple of generations out now, and so we're able to see examples of outright propaganda campaigns, right? Cigarettes is a big one. Reefer madness, right? That's a big one. And so we're able to actually see that, like, oh yeah, like here's like a campaign that was actually implemented in order to propagandize people. So we have examples, clear examples. Like, you don't even need to, like, it's not a conspiracy. Like, it's not like a fake kind of thing that you're speculating on. Like, we've got the documents. And so because of that, it instills within the millennials, and to a degree Gen X as well, that we should be skeptical. Like, we should be more skeptical. Don't believe what you see on TV. Like, I remember growing up, and there was actually a campaign. Does anybody know about the house hippo? House hippo? For American viewers probably don't. So I think I'm going to bring this up because this is quite charming. If you're just listening in, maybe watch for a second if you can. House hippo. Yeah, this is amazing. This is amazing. Right? Like this comes out in 1999. Right?
It's nighttime in a kitchen just like yours. All is quiet. Or is it? The North American house hippo is found throughout Canada and the eastern United States. House hippos are very timid creatures and are rarely seen, but they will defend their territory if provoked. They come out at night to search for food, water, and materials for their nests. The favorite foods of the house hippo are chips, raisins, and the crumbs from peanut butter on toast. They build their nests in bedroom closets, using lost mittens, dryer lint, and bits of string. The nests have to be very soft and warm. House hippos sleep about 16 hours a day.
That looked really real, but you knew it couldn't be true, didn't you? That's why it's good to think about what you're watching on TV and ask questions, kind of like you just did. A message from Concerned Children's Advertisers.
So that's an ad that I remember watching when I was a kid, right? And so we entered kind of a period of time where, like, even the media that is designed to kind of propagandize us, right, is beginning to say back to us, maybe be a little bit more critical of what you're seeing on TV, right? And that's happening in 1999. Which isn't to say that there haven't been previous campaigns, but certainly that kind of narrative wasn't going on to the boomers, right? The first generation of people to be hit by this shit. And like, and so I end up being very, very sympathetic because that kind of profound trauma, which is what it is, right, is going to be very difficult to overcome. It's going to be very, 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 very difficult to overcome. And so it just seems to me like we need a lighter touch when it comes to dealing with the boomers, which again is like, that's why I think source documentation is so important. Because if you can present something that is unequivocal, that is factually true, right? That's more persuasive than anything else. And if they continue to deny it after then you just have to walk away. Right? You just have to walk away. Like, because if they're not willing to look at the facts and at least alter their perspective, if not change it completely, then they're gone. And that's the truth. Like, they're gone. Like, and there is going to come a point, right, where like all of the boomers are going to be old and kind of demented. Right? We're seeing it. Like, take a look at Biden, take a look at Trump. Like, these guys have dementia. Like, and the Congress, like, the average age of the Congress in the United States is like 70. Right? Like, things are getting kind of demented. And they're not just getting demented because of like ideological purity and like this plan and all this kind of stuff. It's happening because these guys are literally demented. Like, literally. So, like, is it any small wonder that we're falling behind? Is it any small wonder that we're going into this decline? Like, it's just simple, like, we're being ruled by a group of people who still think the internet is a series of tubes. Tom, maybe I'm a house hippo. Oh, wow. I know I'm a house hippo. Prove me right. Oh, there you go. Boomers cost the government $1 million in welfare payments each. Are we sure we want to support mask mandates? Oh, yeah. It's kind of grim, but this is what's going to be interesting, guys, is that there is going to be a moment, like, the boomers are going to begin to die, right? And there is going to be a moment when it's just going to be us. It's going to be like Gen X, the millennials, and we're not going to be able to blame the boomers anymore, right? Like that's coming. And sooner than you think, that's coming. And somebody actually, if you believe the internet generational death clock, there are fewer boomers alive than Gen X. Yeah. So, how is that going to change the society? And really, a lot of the media propaganda that's going on, that's still talking to the boomers, well, the reason why they're doing that, why they're talking to the boomers, is because the boomers are the ones with the money, right? Like, the boomers are the ones that have the money. And so the culture and the media is still talking to them because they're the ones that have the money. Yeah, 10K boomers a day are turning 65, yeah. No, guys, these next 10 years are going to be wild, man. Like, no matter how you slice it, they're going to be wild. And if you'd like to stabilize me during that period of time, please feel free to donate to my Patreon. If you donate at $1, you get access to the Discord. If you donate at $5, you get access to my music. And if you donate at $10, you get access to any other project that I do, such as I just wrote a Jafar Redemption arc script that I'm going to be reading aloud, which I will distribute to my patrons at $10 or above. So it's like you're supporting my artistry. I'm literally like the hermit in the what are those called? It used to be popular to have like a Leonardo da Vinci kind of type, where I'm just like living on your property and like doing shit. Which isn't to say that I see myself as intelligent as Leonardo da Vinci. Don't get me wrong. Like, that guy was actually like next level. Like, he was. If Leonardo da Vinci had have been alive, like, even 50 years later, the world would be a different place. If the US makes it a decade, I'll be amazed. Pretty sure we're going to see us implode in 2026. Yeah, it's going to be tough to see, man. It's going to be tough to see how it goes. Like, it's almost a certainty that the United States is going to vote Republican. That seems pretty much certain in these next elections. Yeah, things are going to go wonky, man. Things are going to go wonky. Like, the society is clearly turning against the political correctness movement. It's clearly turning against the quote-unquote social justice warriors. The social justice warriors are doing everything they can to alienate themselves. Right? Like, that's a truism as far as I'm concerned. That, like, we could be doing a lot more. Like, people who are in the social justice warrior kind of side of things could be doing a lot more to reintegrate and unify, right? But that's not how they're approaching it. They're alienating is what they're doing. And like condescending, insulting, right? Saying that people who are Republicans are degenerates, like this kind of stuff that came out of Clinton, right? Well, that attitude has persisted, and people don't like it. You know, and I just don't see a path for unification in the United States. Like, if the kind of democratic, like the social justice warrior types and like the mega crowd are going to reunify with one another, it's going to require like literally a Gandhi style figure, like literally somebody who is just like a spiritual force that sweeps through the land and manages somehow to forge an understanding, if not an allegiance, between these two groups. And with that is going to have to come like an economic amelioration. But that's only going to happen. The January 6th insurrection, the mistake that those guys made is that they went in. They should have surrounded that building and they should have just stayed there. Like that would have been the stronger move. By actually going in to the Capitol and doing what they did, they weakened not only themselves but also future movements, right? That had they stood their ground outside the Capitol and surrounded it and stayed there permanently, that would have been a much, 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 much stronger move. Yeah, hashtag reoccupy. Yeah. Except I see like the people are trying to kick off an Occupy movement again, but they're gonna go back to the Zuccotti Park, and I'm like, fuck that. Fuck that. That's meaningless. Those guys don't give a shit if you do that. Nobody cares if you do that. Right? Nobody cares if you occupy Zuccotti again. Nobody cares. They didn't care then. They're not going to care now. Right? Surround the White House. Surround the Congress. Surround the Senate. Surround the halls of power. Surround the places where decisions are actually made. Right? Like, politicians are cowards. Make them walk through you. War with China could unify the Uniparty for about 3.5 minutes until the nukes hit. Yeah. It looks as though, going back to the meetings between Biden and Xi Jinping, like Xi Jinping is calling for peace, like publicly. He's outright saying that we should coexist peacefully. And honestly, it looks like Biden's going to go that way. Like, sure, he signed the AUKUS plan and all that kind of stuff, but like, I just don't think the Americans are looking at China and thinking like, yeah, we can successfully do this. Like, I think there's enough people who are actually, and enough military personnel who are actually like, is this a good long-term plan? Like, is this a good long-term plan to go to war with China? Do we actually think that we can win this thing? Like, we can't beat fucking Afghanis. We can't beat Iraqis. We can't beat the Vietnamese. Right? China has nukes. Hypersonic nukes. Like, maybe we should think about this. Maybe we should think about stepping back and rethinking about our strategy. Reoccupy all parks until we have homes for all. They didn't care then because they knew it would fizzle out come minus 5 degree temperatures. Well, that's not what fizzled it out. They got cleared. Systematically cleared. East Hawaii. I don't understand the comment, Mox. Sorry. All right, guys. We're overtime. Thanks so much for being here, guys. You are the reason why this thing is so fun and interesting to do. Really. Like, coming together in solidarity, talking about life and talking about what it is to be in this ridiculous society, this pretend society. Always remember, man, and this is true for all of you, you are a quantum being, living in quantum energy. These billionaires are doing everything they can, spending billions of dollars to ensure you don't realize it. Don't let them. Good luck. We're going to need it.